Chapter 1187. Qin Hao was suddenly struck by the dragon spirit. He felt his brain swell, and his body and mind were exhausted. He could no longer hold on and fell into a coma. At this moment, he understood that Li Wanji had no evil intentions. Then, under the guidance of a force, his body followed Li Wanji and floated into the space tunnel. What will be inside? Big brother Qin Hao, wait for me. Xiao Han was slightly startled. Things had changed too quickly. Before he could stab Li Wanji, the other party had already activated the dragon spirit and entered Qin Hao's body. Inside his body, it was only in a flash. Seeing Qin Hao float into the void, Xiao Han squeezed out his remaining strength and nimbly stepped on the void. In a flash, he also disappeared. Damn it, damn it! The supreme fortune of the sixth platform of the coiling dragon wonder was indeed obtained by him. I'm so angry. The white-haired old man swallowed the dragon spirit of the formation. How hateful! Ning Chaofan suddenly came back to his senses and suddenly saw the most spectacular scene in his life. The 100-feet-long dragon spirit returned to Qin Hao's body. Xianyuan Chemical's expression was extremely ugly. Even a fool could recognize that the power contained in the dragon spirit was unparalleled. Since it was obtained by Qin Hao, it was enough to make up for the gap between him on the fourth and fifth platforms. The gap between everyone. Even this kind of good fortune was enough to make Qin Hao far better than everyone else. There was no time for Ning Chaofan and Xianyuan Chemical to be jealous. In the next second, the mountain collapsed and the airflow fell into a riot. Everyone was completely helpless. They were like straws, dancing and crying out. They were sucked into the vortex with a strange cry. Not only Ning Chaofan and Xianyuan Chemical, but also the old demon, the coffin bearer, the broken sword old man, and even the dozens of martial artists who had ascended to the fifth platform were all sucked in. They were too close to each other. Wah! The dust settled and dust covered the ground. Looking at the empty space in front of them, the tens of thousands of martial artists were all shocked. Disappeared. The entire mountain, along with the people who couldn't retreat in time, all disappeared. If it weren't for the massive crater in the ground that was nearly 100 miles wide, all of the martial artists present would have suspected that they were dreaming. This dream was so bizarre and full of color. Just a moment ago, the sky was covered in dark clouds, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The strong wind made it hard for people to open their eyes. Along with a burst of mind-splitting spiritual power, the mountain disappeared in the next second. The most famous coiling dragon wonder in the southern region had completely disappeared. Whoosh 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 whoosh, high up in the sky, several platinum-colored flowing lights flew over from 3 different directions. Their enormous auras were like the descent of emperors. That ferocious yuan qi shook the ground to the point of bouncing non-stop. As soon as the emperor-rank experts of the Xianyuan clan and Ning clan entered the arena, it caused the coiling dragon peak that had fallen into a short period of silence to erupt into waves once more. Without needing anyone to give the order, all the martial artists rushed into the void. The hovering platinum figure knelt down. The strong were born to dominate the weak. Unfortunately, we were one step too late. A middle-aged Emperor Yuan of the Xianyuan clan said. When they arrived, they had already seen several figures hiding in the void tunnel. Among them, there was an aura that clearly belonged to an emperor-rank expert. Moreover, it was a particularly strong one among the emperor rank. One of them. They guessed that it must be the initiator of the spiritual power shrouding the southern region. You, stand up and tell me what happened here just now. Where is the coiling dragon wonder? An Emperor Yuan of the Ning clan said majestically, pointing to the head of a kneeling martial artist at his feet. The 3 emperors of the Ning clan floated separately from the Emperor Yuan of the Xianyuan clan 100 meters apart, minding their own business. Because the Ning Wu Empire was further away from the coiling dragon peak than the proud God Empire, The difference of a few seconds made it so that the people of the Ning clan didn't see the scene of Qin Hao floating into the tunnel. Reporting to the great emperor, this is what happened. The kneeling martial artist got up, bowed, and briefly recounted what happened. In fact, among the tens of thousands of people present, no one knew that the violent spiritual power was released by Qin Hao. They only saw a ball of golden light suddenly erupting on the peak. It was too strong, and then a gust of wind suddenly blew and dark clouds covered the sky. Everyone was tortured to the point where they were better off dead. They went to see what happened on the peak. But the last scene was seen by everyone. The coiling dragon wonder was activated by a white-haired martial artist. Li Wanji pressed down with his palm and lifted the peak up. The dragon spirit transformed under Li Wanji's palm and was finally subdued by the white-haired martial artist. Then, the peak collapsed, and the people on the peak disappeared together with it. What? Li Wanji did it again? Emperor Yuan of the Ning clan shuddered inexplicably after hearing this. Li Wanji's name was quite famous in the southern region. After all, it was hard for a freak who participated in 7 consecutive visualization sessions and still wasn't rejected by the crowd to not become famous. But Emperor Yuan of the Ning clan would never have thought that Li Wanji was an emperor-rank powerhouse. At this time, from the mouth of the kneeling martial artist, the surrounding martial artists nodded repeatedly. Emperor Yuan of the Ning clan had to believe it even if he didn't want to. Could it be that Li Wanji is the person who released the violent spiritual power? Another Emperor Yuan of the Ning clan looked at his 2 companions in confusion. Replying to the great emperor, according to the scene, the method that Li Wanji used to draw the dragon in the air is exactly the same as the legendary enchantment of the Spirit Emperor. He is most likely the Spirit Emperor himself. The martial artist said again. Not only did the 3 emperors of the Ning clan gasp, but even the 6 emperors of the Xianyuan clan gasped at the same time. Oh my god, it turns out that Li Wanji is the elusive Spirit Emperor Ling Yangzi. No wonder this person participated in 7 consecutive visualization sessions and wasn't rejected by the crowd. From this, it made sense. It all made sense now. At this moment, whether it was Emperor Yuan of the Ning clan or Emperor Yuan of the Xianyuan clan, they all agreed with the words of the kneeling martial artist. But why did the old ancestor order them to kill the owner of the violent spiritual power, which was to kill Li Wanji? The 6 emperors of the Xianyuan clan couldn't figure out how this Li Wanji offended their old ancestor, Xianyuan Wutian. Could it be that he hooked up with the old ancestor's lover? Were the 2 of them rivals in love? In terms of seniority, it was possible, because all the emperors present knew that the history of the coiling dragon wonder was at least 800 years old. Spirit Emperor had been famous for a long time. When he advanced to the emperor realm, all the emperors present were wearing open crotch pants. They were in their mothers' wombs. In terms of age, Li Wanji and Xianyuan Wutian, who was more than 1,000 years old, seemed to be of the same generation. TSK, I didn't expect that the most grumpy old ancestor of the Xianyuan clan is also a sentimental person. He got angry for a beauty. An old Emperor Yuan of the Xianyuan clan couldn't help but smile. Xianyuan Wutian woke up from his coffin because of jealousy. He really hated Li Wanji to the core. It seemed that they also had very deep stories when they were young. Ha ha ha! The other 5 emperors of the Xianyuan clan all laughed happily. It was a waste of youth if one wasn't romantic. No matter how powerful the old ancestor was, he was once a hot-blooded young man who was impulsive for love. However, even if he killed Li Wanji because of jealousy, this matter couldn't be spread. After all, it would damage the dignity of the Xianyuan clan. Thinking of this, the 6 emperors straightened their attitude, and their expressions became very serious. But they really couldn't help but want to laugh. Chapter 1188. Qian. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless fantasy translation people from Xianyang are here. What should we do next? Should we send people to search for traces or stay here? Among the 6 emperors, a middle-aged Emperor Yuan looked at the old Emperor Yuan. The old ancestor ordered Li Wanji to be killed, so this person couldn't be left alive. There's no need to stay. Li Wanji has already torn a space tunnel and left. His whereabouts are erratic, and it won't be easy to find him. Let's go back and discuss it with the family head, the old Emperor Yuan said. Judging from the strength of his violent spiritual power, Li Wanji was a 9-star emperor-level cultivator. If they stayed behind, they wouldn't be his opponent unless everyone joined forces. The middle-aged Emperor Yuan nodded and then smiled coldly at the 3 emperors of the Ning family. You guys are too late. I'm afraid you won't have a chance to win Li Wanji over to serve the Ning Wu Empire. Same here. Isn't the Xianyuan family unable to get him? The leader of the Ning family, Emperor Yuan, responded coldly, guessing that the other party's purpose was the same as theirs, to win over Li Wanji. Li Wanji had already left, and it was useless for them to stay. After exchanging glances, the 3 emperors of the Ning family tore space and teleported back. Now that Qin Hao's spiritual power was no longer interfering, the space of the southern territory returned to balance, and they no longer had to worry about being involved in the turbulence of space. They had to bring the news to Great Emperor Ning Wu. It turned out that Li Wanji was Ling Yangzi. As for whether they would continue to win him over, it would depend on the family head's plan. After the Ning family left, the 6 people of the Xianyuan family were also about to leave. But suddenly, the middle-aged Emperor Yuan's eyes flashed as he caught an acquaintance among the tens of thousands of martial artists. Qing Lao. It's Duanmu Qinghui. The middle-aged Emperor Yuan suddenly became excited, and the excitement in his eyes turned into thick killing intent. Duanmu Qinghui, the great elder of the left faction of the Myriad Cultivator Alliance, one of the supreme leaders of the Myriad Cultivator Alliance. Truly, there was a way to go, but you didn't take it, and there was no door to hell. Translation, 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 translation. 9th uncle. The middle-aged Emperor Yuan was anxious. Now was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Once Duanmu Qinghui returned to the Myriad Cultivator Alliance, it would be difficult to kill him again. The battle situation has changed. It's not suitable for us to take action at the moment. Let's go back and discuss how to deal with Li Wanji with the Patriarch. Let's go. The old Emperor Yuan didn't allow the middle-aged Emperor Yuan to resist. He waved his palm and opened up a space crack. The 6 of them hid in it and headed towards Nanao. A few days ago, more than a dozen scouts sent to probe the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance were killed one after another. None of them survived, which proved that the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance was ready for a head-on battle, which represented the other party's determination to fight to the death. On the surface, with Duanmu Qinghui's cultivation, any one of the 6 of them could kill him. But Emperor Yuan knew that it wasn't that easy. Duanmu Qinghui had led the Myriad Cultivator Alliance for decades, and he wasn't a mediocre person at all. He even suspected that even if all 6 of them attacked together, they might not be able to kill the first elder of the Myriad Cultivator Alliance, who was half a step away from Dendi. It was more important to bring the news that Li Wanji was Ling Yangzi back to the Patriarch Alliance. The old Emperor Yuan also sighed softly. The original plan to launch a surprise attack on the Myriad Cultivator Alliance was inexplicably disrupted. Now that the old ancestor had ordered Ling Yangzi to be killed, he was afraid that the attack on the Myriad Cultivator Alliance would be delayed again. Brother Qing, the people of the Xianyuan family seem to have noticed us just now. In the crowd, Master Gu whispered. Qing Lao nodded. Not only did they notice us, but they also had the intention to kill us. Qing Lao was also very puzzled. The relationship between the Myriad Cultivator Alliance and Nan Ao was very serious. They were even like fire and water. But it wasn't time to shed all pretense of cordiality yet. Why did the people of the Xianyuan family have such strong killing intent towards him before leaving? At this time, Qing Lao didn't know that the border of the Myriad Cultivator Alliance had been attacked. He took a deep breath and looked at the vast crater, feeling a burst of regret. The magnificent coiling dragon wonder was gone just like that. The essence of the path of enchantment hadn't been fully comprehended yet. What a pity, what a pity! At this time, Qin Hao's handsome face suddenly appeared in his mind. According to the discussion of the cultivators just now, the person who finally absorbed the Wonder Dragon spirit was a white-haired young man. This made him recall that Qin Hao had 2 strands of white hair in front of his forehead when he met him in the Star Refining Building. Moreover, a while ago, Gu Huangshou did give Qin Hao some pointers and let him come to the Coiling Dragon Wonder to see the subtleties of the enchantment technique. Could it really be him? Qing Lao thought. Brother Qing, who are you talking about? Gu Huangshou looked at Duanmu Qinghui, who was lost in thought. Ah, nothing. Duanmu Qinghui waved his hand and smiled faintly. Maybe he was thinking too much. Qin Hao was just an 8th stage Yuan monarch. It was impossible for him to step on the 6th platform. Maybe it was another white-haired cultivator. Brother Qing, do you want to go back to the 10,000 Cultivator Union to take a look? I keep feeling that the people of the Xianyuan family are strange. Gu Huangshou reminded him. At that moment, the other party emitted a very strong murderous intent, as if he was eager to get rid of Duanmu Qinghui. Maybe something had happened to the 10,000 Cultivator Union. There's no hurry. There's still half a month before the Martial Ning Empire's triennial auction begins. I'm preparing to make a trip there. Qing Lao replied. He was a little worried about the 10,000 Cultivator Union. However, he wasn't the only person in charge of the 10,000 Cultivator Union. Without him, the sky would collapse. The 10,000 Cultivator Union was divided into the left faction and the right faction. The left faction was led by Grand Elder Duanmu Qinghui. They pursued the ideals of the former Jing nation's imperial family and focused on recuperating and striving to govern. Moreover, the left faction still supported the Jing family, which had withdrawn from the ruling stage, and hoped that the Zheng family could return to the throne. The right faction was different. The right faction opposed the left faction and was very opposed to the return of the Zheng nation. The Grand Elder leading the right faction was a very violent guy. He killed decisively and pursued fighting to stop fighting. Although his position was different from Duanmu Qinghui's, the two sides were united in protecting the 10,000 Cultivator Union. Even without Duanmu Qinghui, the right faction's Grand Elder could still command the entire situation. Qing Lao was very interested in the upcoming auction in the Martial Ning Empire. There was news that Western Liang's Dan Go had brought a miraculous pill to this auction. After a martial artist took it, they would instantly advance. It was very miraculous. Qing Lao studied alchemy to the point of obsession. He had to go and take a look. Oh, I understand. You want to bid for a Saint Soul pill to decipher the recipe. Gu Huangshou smiled. He understood Duanmu Qinghui very well. Once the recipe for the Saint Soul pill was deciphered, the strength of the 10,000 Cultivator Union's left faction martial artists would rise greatly in a short period of time. Gu Huangshou naturally didn't doubt Qing Lao's ability. As long as he could bid for it, he would definitely be able to decipher the recipe. This was because Qing Lao was the only powerhouse in the southern domain who had a chance of becoming Dendi. Let's go. Duanmu Qinghui smiled knowingly and didn't deny it. A spatial gap tore open in front of them and the two stepped in. No matter what happened to the 10,000 Cultivator Union, as long as he could hold on until he returned from the Martial Ning Empire with the Saint Soul pill, the situation would be reversed. Moreover, Gu Huangshou was providing the divine soldier behind the scenes. There were also several great suzerain-level experts in the former homeland of the prosperous country who had a good relationship with Gu Huangshou. If Southern Ao really started a war with the 10,000 Cultivator Union, the Xianyuan family definitely wouldn't feel good about being counterattacked. Chapter 1189. Everyone left one after another, and the other martial artists who participated in this spectacle also dispersed. In the gradually thinning crowd, the Emperor of the Proud North, Li Yuan, who was wearing a simple green robe, looked up at the sky and smiled. Ning family, Proud South, Proud Xianyuan family, even Duanmu Qinqing of the Wanxiu alliance. Qinqing is also here. The violent aura caused quite a commotion. However, many powerhouses had come in high spirits, but they returned in disappointment. Duanmu Qinghui probably doesn't know that the Wanxiu alliance was attacked by Proud South, Li Yuan said. Fight to your heart's content. No matter what the final result is, the side that benefits will always be the Proud North. Li Yuan wasn't worried about the Proud North Li family. However, there was one thing that he couldn't figure out. According to the martial artists present, the person who released the violent aura was obviously Li Wanji. And this Li Wanji was actually the most mysterious spirit emperor in the southern region. No wonder the old ancestor warned him to treat him with respect and not anger him. Otherwise, even the old ancestor couldn't protect Li Yuan. Ling Yangzi was proficient in refining and enchanting. When he fought seriously, Li Yuan was indeed not his opponent. This person was worth the Proud North trying to rope in at all costs. But the strange thing was, when did the Xianyuan family have a grudge with Li Wanji? This made Li Yuan very confused. If the two sides really had a grudge, why didn't Spirit Emperor take action before? For hundreds of years, he had been hiding his head and tail, but today he rose up. It's not that he doesn't want revenge, but the time isn't right. The old ancestor's words are really profound. Li Yuan put his hands behind his back and said resentfully. Perhaps Ling Yangzi had been cultivating some kind of heavenly god technique for the past hundreds of years. Until today, he had achieved great success in this technique, which was enough to deal a devastating blow to the Xianyuan family. Nodding, Li Yuan felt that it was probably the case. He was the emperor. How could the emperor guess wrong? Forget it, let's go back and talk to the old ancestor. Li Yuan also prepared to leave. Even if his cultivation was infinitely close to a 9-star great emperor, Li Wanji tore space and ran away. He couldn't lock his aura. Because no one knew where Li Wanji ran to. Li Yuan was about to leave. Suddenly, in the dense forest not far from the coiling dragon wonder, he found a very familiar aura. This aura made Li Yuan's expression turn ugly. He turned around. With a flash, Zhang Xian appeared right before the other party. At this moment, in the dense forest not far away, two figures stood, one in front and one behind. Through the dense forest, they observed the direction of the coiling dragon wonder, the collapse of the mountain and Qin Hao absorbing the dragon spirit. He had seen everything that had happened. The figure at the front was Li Yaqi. Behind Li Yaqi was Shi Xiang, who looked like a dog. The space in front of the two of them twisted. Suddenly, a majestic and imposing figure descended without any warning, giving Li Yaqi and Shi Xiang a fright. This was especially true for Li Yaqi. Looking at Li Yuan in front of him, he was so shocked that his face turned pale and his body trembled. He was completely at a loss for words. Vile spawn, you don't even know how to speak after seeing your father? Li Yuan's face tightened as he shouted in a very serious manner. Father! Imperial father! Li Yaqi was intimidated by Li Yuan's imposing manner. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed. Subordinate Shi Xiang, the new confidant of the 7th prince, pays respect to my lord. Long live the emperor! Where did this shitty subordinate come from? I don't have anyone with the surname Shi under my command. Get lost. Li Yuan suddenly shouted, and a turbulent air burst out from his mouth. With a bang, the air burst out and hit Shi Xiang's body. Shi Xiang felt that all the bones in his body were about to shatter. He suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and rolled like a tortoise shell. He howled as he somersaulted and disappeared into the forest. You! Li Yaqi's eyes were burning with anger. Shi Xiang had already stated his identity. He was his subordinate, but Li Yuan did not show any mercy. You don't like it? Vile spawn. Li Yuan looked down at his son with disdain. Son, count as one. I don't dare. Li Yaqi quickly lowered his head, not daring to let Li Yuan see the anger in his eyes. He placed his hands on the ground and his 10 fingers sank deep into the soil. The soil in his hands was Li Yuan. Hee, I'm afraid there's nothing in this world that you don't dare to do. Li Yuan sneered. How could he not feel Li Yaqi's suppressed anger? However, he did not care at all and pointed at Li Yaqi's head again. He reprimanded loudly, My northern Li family is the indomitable lord of the southern region. What was that thing just now? A weak king stage martial artist like an ant is worthy of serving my Li family's descendant? Vile spawn. Have you fallen to such a state? You make me bitterly disappointed. Fallen? Li Yaqi smiled bleakly in his heart and did not respond. Taking in a king stage martial artist as a servant was considered falling? Well, even if he fell, he was forced by the Li family. Since young, Li Yaqi had never received the slightest bit of warmth from the family. The family had never taught or nurtured him. He had never experienced what it meant to be protected. In the past, when his eldest brother was alive, it was still okay. Although they were not brothers, his eldest brother was benevolent and loving. He had never looked at him with a lowly gaze. His eldest brother had passed away inexplicably. Li Yaqi's days in the family felt like years. It was fine if the other brothers bullied and oppressed him, but even his younger brother and sister treated him differently. His subordinates, the black-white double demons, were the wandering heroes that his mother had saved. What did the family give him? Did they give him anything? I know you hate the Li family, but you can't deny that the blood flowing in your body is the blood of the Li family. Even if you die, you can't get rid of the Li family. Forget it, I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Get up and go back to the family to help your second brother train soldiers. Why don't you learn more from your second brother? He has stepped into the Emperor stage and cultivated the yellow art of expansion to the 8th stage, the profound transformation realm. You trash. Li Yuan cursed and turned to leave in disappointment. However, he felt that Li Yaqi still had no intention of getting up and leaving with him. Li Yuan couldn't help but stop in his tracks. He turned back and said hoarsely, Vile spawn. Vile spawn, you're born with a lowly aura. You don't have any courage or backbone. Boom. Li Yaqi felt like his head was about to explode. He endured being bullied. He endured being discriminated against by his brothers and sisters. Scolding him, insulting him, it was fine. However, he could not insult his mother, the pitiful woman who had brought him into this world. Li Yuan. Li Yaqi suddenly raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot. He suddenly pulled out his pale white fingers that had sunk into the mud. An intense scarlet light was born between his palms. His suppression turned into the most ferocious attack, charging at his biological father. He heavily punched this dazzling scarlet light. Pa! Li Yuan gently raised his right arm and flicked his finger at the scarlet light flying over. Li Yaqi's furious attack was easily neutralized. This simple action did not require any strength at all. It was as simple as lifting one's foot to stomp on an ant. It shattered Li Yaqi's last shred of dignity. Second stage, Qi Shadow Rising Fog. Is that all your yellow art of expansion can do? TSK trash. Li Yuan spat out a mouthful of saliva. Suddenly, he raised one of his palms and turned his fingers into claws. His chi stirred up a hurricane and gathered a clump of platinum aura. Then, he sent a sharp palm strike into the distance. Rumble! This platinum aura flattened a towering mountain peak in the distance, leaving behind a bottomless crater. This shocking scene was no less than the collapse of coiling Dragon Peak. This is the true Chi Shadow Rising Fog. However, yours is not worthy of being called Chi Shadow Rising Fog. Li Yuan said emotionlessly. The ground beneath his feet trembled and the cracks spread. When he reached the void, his figure flashed and disappeared completely. Chapter 1190. Liyaki's birth mother had been a maid in the palace back then. She had a lowly status and had died in the scheme of the concubines. However, Li Yuan had never looked down on Liyaki. It was just that Liyaki couldn't walk out of the pit in his heart. He didn't teach him or give him any rights. It wasn't because he was disappointed in Liyaki. Li Yuan just wanted to see if this disappointing son of his was really his kind. Fight if you have the ability. Fight if you don't want to. Go and trample on your second brother and beat up your fourth brother for insulting you. This was what Li Yuan desperately wanted to see. However, Liyaki didn't. He was like a useless lamb in front of the dragons of the royal family. He trembled, felt inferior, abandoned himself, and felt uneasy all day long. This vile creature is really infuriating. However, that Chi Shadow Soaring Mist move is still pretty decent. It can easily kill a 5th level Yuan Venerate. Li Yuan couldn't help but chide him as he flew in the void. He hadn't paid attention to his 7th son for a long time. It turned out that he had already entered the Venerate grade and reached the 2nd level Yuan Venerate. He hoped that he could understand his father's intentions. Li Yuan sighed sorrowfully. How could a royal family be as harmonious as a commoner's family? While he was still around, he could suppress the descendants of the royal family who were getting stronger day by day. His 7th son should also quickly become stronger. Otherwise, once his lifespan was exhausted, how could he escape from the claws of his brothers when his 7th brother's birth mother was of such a despicable background and he did not have any power behind him? There was only one emperor. Li Yuan knew very well that an emperor wouldn't leave a threat by his side. He had also walked this path. His hands had been stained with the blood of his brothers, and he had done many things that he had no choice but to do. However, this was a royal family. Did they want to be emperors? Did they want to be emperors' stepping stones and sacrificial lambs? Liyaki stared at the towering mountain range that had disappeared in the distance. The ground was still shaking from the impact of Li Yuan's attack. Liyaki stood rooted to the ground in shock. His body was trembling and his eyes were filled with fear. Is it really only the 2nd level of the Yellow Dian art, Chi Shadow Soaring Mist? It could be said to be devastating. Under the bombardment of the golden white aura, even an 8th stage Yuan Emperor would be crippled if he didn't die. Liyaki knew very well how terrifying the yellow art of heaven expansion was. Although Li Yuan's realm had reached the peak of martial arts, the way he used his moves and his posture at that moment was too ruthless. The strike that was mixed with the majesty of an emperor made it impossible for people to resist. Defiance. At this moment, Liyaki was truly frightened. However, an even stronger sense of humiliation surged to his head, causing him to roar. Oh my God, is this the move of Emperor Yuan? Too scary, too scary. 7th Prince, Your Highness, what should I do next? Liyaki roared. Shi Xiang, whose face was bruised and swollen from the fall, crawled back and prostrated himself on the ground. Trash! Liyaki kicked Shi Xiang, causing him to spit out another mouthful of blood. Liyaki took 2 deep breaths and suppressed the fear that Li Yuan brought. He looked into the sky and said, Just you wait. Sooner or later, I will make everyone in the Li clan regret this. I will make them understand. Look down on me. What a tragic end it will be. And you, Li Yuan, just you wait. I will kill you with Chi Shadow and Fog. I swear, I will kill you with Qi shadow and fog. Shi Xiang trembled as he listened to the rebellious words. He regretted following Li Yaqi. The royal family was too cold-blooded. Accompanying the emperor was like accompanying a tiger. As long as he took a wrong step, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. However, he knew that if he dared to withdraw now, Li Yaqi would definitely kill him without hesitation. Just like Li Yuan, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. Go and find me a few swordsman masters. Soul essence swordsmen with cultivation above the 3rd and 5th tier of the monarch realm. From today onwards, I want to practice swordsmanship. Li Yaqi said coldly and walked away. He walked into the distance. Swordsman masters? Shi Xiang was stunned. He pointed at the disappearing coiling dragon peak and asked, "What about the white-haired man? And the Nanming coffin-bearer?" "The coffin-bearer is dead for sure. No need to wait for him." Li Yaqi turned around and glanced at the coiling dragon peak. Recalling the scene of Qin Hao absorbing the dragon spirit, he had a strong feeling that the Nanming coffin-bearer was dead for sure. However, even if he died, he would release the energy of the yellow art on Qin Hao. Therefore, no matter what, Qin Hao would not be able to escape from his grasp. He was not in a hurry to take revenge. I also think that the coffin-bearer is dead for sure. But why does the 7th Highness want to practice swordsmanship? Shi Xiang exhaled and followed. 2 months ago, Qin Hao had killed Shi Quanglong, who was half a step away from the Emperor realm, before his potential was stimulated by the coiling dragon peak. Now that he had absorbed the dragon spirit, the coffin-bearer was most likely dead. What Shi Xiang did not understand was why Li Yaqi did not practice the Li family's ancestral imperial arts and insisted on finding a swordsmanship master. If I tell you to look for it, then go and look for it. Remember, a talkative slave dies quickly. Li Yaqi glared fiercely at Shi Xiang, causing Shi Xiang to shiver in fear. Why find a swordsmanship master? Because Li Yaqi wanted to let Qin Hao know what it felt like to say, "You are not qualified to make me use my sword. Let's see if you improve faster or if I improve faster." "Qin Hao, I said that I will be your nightmare for the rest of your life, ha ha ha." Li Yaqi laughed and flew into the sky. With the support of the yellow art of expansion, he believed that the power of his sword energy would not be inferior to Qin Hao's. It was a pity that the coiling dragon wonder would be destroyed. If he had known that it would be destroyed, he would have stepped on it together and accepted the last round of stimulation. At the very least, Li Yaqi's power would not be inferior to that of Ning Chaofan and Xianyuan Chemical. After all, he was a direct descendant of the Li family. As for Ning Chaofan and Xianyuan Chemical, they were lowly branches. The wind blew the leaves, making rustling sounds. There seemed to be small insects crawling around under him, giving him a strange feeling. His body was weak and his mouth was dry. The hot weather made him even more uncomfortable. Thirsty, water, Qin Hao, who had fainted on the ground, let out a few sleep-talking sounds. Hearing his voice, a sweet spring immediately descended. It was very cool and very sweet. It slid down his throat and into his stomach. Qin Hao began to greedily suck it. Woof woof woof. The dog spirit licked Qin Hao's cheek. Its tongue carried the power of a strange flame, making it slightly hot. Han-er. Qin Haoji suddenly woke up from his coma and sat up abruptly. Hua. A huge leaf fell from his face onto his leg. The spring water on the leaf spilled all over his body and wet Qin Hao's pants. Woof woof roar. Seeing that Qin Hao had woken up, the dog spirit happily jumped around him a few times. Brother dog. Qin Hao rubbed his eyes. He did not know how long he had been unconscious. His head was very heavy. When he woke up, he looked around. Chapter 1191. Before he lost consciousness, his last impression was that Li Wanji had brought him into the space whirlpool. Could this be the inside of a different space? With a glance, Qin Hao had a conclusion. It was indeed a space secret realm. The place where he was lying was at the top of a low hill. The surrounding environment and terrain of the hill were very similar to the geology of Pan Long Mountain. However, there were also differences. The wind here was not very natural. The speed of its flow was very constant. Looking up at the sun was not very real. It was like a projection that was refracted through a secret method. As an Emperor stage expert in his previous life, Qin Hao could naturally see that this was an independent space sealed by a profound method. However, the terrain and plants in the space were all real, just like the underground world of the Imperial Mausoleum in the eastern suburbs of Luoshui Imperial City. If I'm not wrong, this place used to be part of the source of the South River a long time ago. However, it was forcefully shattered by an Emperor stage expert and sealed. Qin Hao exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Knowing where he was, he calmed down. The entrance to the space was above the top of Pan Long Mountain, which was where the whirlpool tunnel was. The person who sealed it was extremely powerful and was definitely not weaker than his previous life. Even the degree of exquisiteness of the technique was above Qin Hao's. Could it be Li Wanji? Qin Hao shook his head. If it was Li Wanji, how could he not know the entrance to the secret realm? In that case, who was the one who placed the seal? What was the purpose? Or could it be that there was a shocking secret or a supreme treasure hidden in this space? The treasure was to the extent that even Li Wanji would go crazy for it. Since we're here, let's take things as they come. Let's find Han and the old demon first. The secret realm aroused Qin Hao's curiosity. He patted his head. He was still a little dizzy. Han and the old demon were not by his side. They should have been scattered by the spatial airflow and fell somewhere in the secret realm. He hoped that everyone would be safe during this period of time. Brother Dog, how long have I been unconscious? Qin Hao took out a herb that nourished divine sense from his storage ring. He plucked the green leaves of the herb and threw them into his mouth. As the juice entered his stomach, it flowed through his meridians and merged with his origin qi. His mind felt refreshed, and he became much more clear-headed. Woof 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 woof. The dog spirit squatted in front of Qin Hao and barked 7 times. 7 days. Qin Hao was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. You actually slept for so long. Thank you for your hard work. He raised his hand and stroked the dog spirit's head. For the past 7 days, it had been silently protecting him. He looked at the leaves on his legs. The leaves were as wide as a palm and thick, with downy hairs and pits in the middle. It should be Brother Dog that brought it here to quench its thirst. It really was like an older brother. If it weren't for Brother Dog, Qin Hao would have been lying unconscious on the hill. Perhaps he would have been eaten by a wild beast. Moreover, the number of martial artists involved in the mystic realm was probably not small. Ning Chaofan, Xianyuan Chemical, you'd better behave yourselves or else. Qin Hao's eyes flashed with sharpness as he subconsciously clenched his fists. The two of them had stimulated their potential on Coiling Dragon Peak, and obtained great benefit. He had obtained quite a bit of good fortune, and was now qualified to cause trouble for Ke and Huang. However, this wasn't what Qin Hao was most worried about. What really made him nervous was the coffin-carrying man and the old man with the broken sword. The coffin-carrying man and the old man with the broken sword were undoubtedly the top existences in this year's wonder. Qin Hao had been unconscious for 7 days. If Han Ke and the old demon, who had been separated from him, met the two of them, the consequences would be dire. The consequences would be very serious. Thinking of this, Qin Hao immediately sat cross-legged and meditated. He checked his own condition. After receiving the spiritual energy infusion, awakening the Godfiend blood essence, and devouring the dragon spirit, did his cultivation change? As for how strong he was, he could only perfectly unleash his strength when he understood his own condition and fought with the coffin-carrying man and the old man with the broken sword. His divine sense entered his body. At this moment, he could clearly see that the godfiend blood essence was still in an awakened state. It floated in his heart and emitted a dark red glow. Qin Hao couldn't help but be overjoyed. The power of the blood essence was unfathomable. As long as it remained awake, there were 10,000 ways to increase his strength. Moreover, the godfiend blood essence was wrapped in a milky white halo. The milky white halo was also filled with powerful energy. It was undoubtedly the 12 spiritual energy infusion. Qin Hao couldn't help but be excited again. He was excited because he had really benefited a lot from it. Although the amount of spiritual energy infusion was much less than before the godfiend blood essence was awakened, if he completely absorbed it, it would still give Qin Hao a qualitative leap. The coiling dragon wonder was worth the trip. However, what made Qin Hao even more excited was still behind. When his divine sense swept across his dantian, he saw an exquisite dragon spirit quietly entrenched in his dantian. Its tiny body looked very cute. However, the aura it emitted was incomparably powerful. Emperor stage. Boom! Qin Hao's mind shook. He couldn't help but want to jump up and roar in excitement. After his rebirth, there was not a moment when he didn't want to recover his former peak cultivation so that he could find that bitch Han Lingxian. Settle the score. No matter how hard he worked, his improvement was several times or even more than 10 times that of his peers. However, one couldn't become fat in one bite. How difficult was it to recover to the Emperor stage? As his level increased, he would break through. The more difficult it was different now. Qin Hao actually had an Emperor stage dragon spirit in his body. How could he not be ecstatic? He was so crazy that he was about to go crazy. If I refine the dragon spirit and merge it with me, I can recover to Dendi in a short period of time. Qin Hao clenched his fists, and his coiled-up body trembled. He was really too excited. Too excited. Although the power of the dragon spirit was only at the level of the early stage Emperor Yuan. However, even the lowest stage Emperor Yuan could sweep across the world. At this moment, Qin Hao only wanted to thank Li Wanji's 18 generations of ancestors. Once he broke through to the Emperor stage, he could completely control the highest profound meaning of alchemy. He didn't need to be too weak. Instead, he would be restricted in all kinds of ways. With Qin Hao's ability, with sufficient medicinal herbs, it would take less than 5 years to cultivate from the early stage Emperor Yuan to the peak Emperor Yuan. Refine the dragon spirit. Hot-headed, Qin Hao almost impulsively wanted to refine it immediately. But when he made his move, his movements stiffened and he fell into hesitation. Because a set of mysterious mystical abilities passed down from ancient times was recalled by him without warning and broke into Qin Hao's sea of consciousness. Transcendence mystical ability. Qin Hao chanted silently, and the condensed essence energy scattered in his meridians. The grade of the Transcendence mystical ability was the same as the Golden Finger and the Crepe Myrtle Heavenly Rainbow Sword technique. It was also a high-grade Heaven-tier martial technique. But Qin Hao knew very well that its true power was far superior to the Golden Finger and the Crepe Myrtle Heavenly Rainbow Sword technique. The Transcendence mystical ability had been passed down since ancient times. In ancient times, it was a set of powerful martial techniques that shocked thousands of powerhouses and gave people a headache. In modern times, except for Qin Hao and Zhan Wu, no one else knew how to cultivate the Transcendence mystical ability. And Zhan Wu didn't have the conditions to cultivate it at all. Firstly, the Transcendence mystical ability had long been lost. Qin Hao and Zhan Wu knew how to cultivate it. It was taught by an old Yuan emperor back then. That old Yuan emperor could be considered the master of Qin Hao and Zhan Wu. They treated him with respect and love as if he was their biological father. Secondly, special conditions were needed to cultivate the Transcendence mystical ability. Originally, it was impossible for Qin Hao to cultivate it successfully. However, The appearance of the dragon spirit in his body at this moment gave him hope. The innate condition for cultivating the transcendence mystical ability and condensing the transcendence mystical ability was to have a powerful spiritual object born between heaven and earth. The dragon spirit had the qualifications to become a transcendence mystical ability. Chapter 1192. Everyone absorbed together. Stepping into the Emperor stage isn't something that can be done overnight. I'm afraid I'll have to spend a lot of effort and time in seclusion to fuse with the dragon's soul. As a result, I might miss the opportunity to enter the South Pole Divine Palace, and I might not be able to find Little Han and the old demon. After thinking for a moment, Qin Hao suppressed his impulse and gave up the idea of fusing with the dragon's soul. The value of fusing with it was far less than refining it into a Dharma idol. Moreover, there was the remaining power of the God-fiend blood essence and the 12 strands of spiritual energy in his body. Absorbing the spiritual energy alone could help him advance to the Emperor stage. It would be a waste to forcefully consume the dragon's soul at this time. Cultivate into a Dharma idol. Nodding, Qin Hao no longer hesitated and began to cultivate according to the cultivation method of the Dharma idol technique. All the memories of his previous life and this life in his mind turned into overlapping waves that bombarded the dragon's soul. The Dharma idol technique was actually similar to a martial artist's cloning technique. However, its power was thousands of times stronger than cloning. No matter how brilliant the cloning technique was, it couldn't unleash the full cultivation of the martial artist's main body. At the perfection realm, one could at most use about 60 to 70% of the main body's strength. This was already the highest realm of martial arts. Only extremely talented geniuses had this kind of ability. Moreover, during a battle, the cloning technique would be affected by external factors and severely weaken its combat strength, causing it to be difficult to use some of the powerful cultivation methods and martial arts techniques that the martial artist cultivated. A Dharma idol was completely different. Not only could it unleash the full cultivation of a martial artist, it could even surpass the ability of the martial artist's main body. More importantly, it was completely unaffected by external factors. As long as it was something that the martial artist's main body knew, it could perfectly replicate it, be it cultivation methods, martial arts techniques, or even the origin spirit. For example, if Qin Hao cultivated a Dharma idol, the Dharma idol was equivalent to Qin Hao's second life. Because it also had spiritual consciousness, the ability to think, and everything about Qin Hao, including the power of 3 souls, the demigod body, and the indestructible samsara art. It could be said to be extremely abnormal. Although it was separated from the main body, it was connected to the main body and was under the main body's command. No matter how difficult and dangerous it would never betray him. Could it be that Qin Hao would betray him? Thinking about it from another perspective, if a second Qin Hao suddenly appeared in the middle of a battle, with the same strength, speed, swordsmanship, and source spirit as Qin Hao, then how miserable and desperate would the opponent be? Therefore, the aspect divine power was publicly recognized as the most perverse cultivation method since ancient times. Very few martial artists could cultivate it. The innate conditions to cultivate it were too harsh. One had to rely on luck. Who would have thought that the great fortuitous encounter that stumped the ancient warriors would appear on Qin Hao today? Only a fool would give it up. Qin Hao sat cross-legged, his body releasing balls of light one after another, extremely dazzling, causing the entire hill to shake. He poured all of his battle techniques, experience, life experiences, and even his attainments in alchemy into the dragon spirit's body. The entire process was extremely exhausting, and in a short moment, Qin Hao was already sweating profusely from exhaustion. The dog spirit quietly squatted where it was, guarding Qin Hao firmly to prevent anyone from disturbing him. For 3 days and 2 nights, Qin Hao carefully carved the dragon spirit with his powerful mind, as if he was carving a piece of art. He was so meticulous and rigorous, afraid that he would miss out on a single bit of his ability. Also at noon on the fourth day, the whoosh. A wisp of white gas was exhaled from Qin Hao's mouth, and the flickering light on his body finally dissipated. He opened his eyes, which were filled with surprise. Even if he was exhausted, it could not stop his excitement at this moment. Aspect open! Qin Hao let out a deep shout, his eyes glinting with sharpness. Whoosh! A white shadow suddenly flew out of his body and stood in front of him, its speed so fast that it could not be seen in the blink of an eye. Then, in the next second, the dog spirit widened its eyes and barked at the white figure in terror. At this moment, the white shadow revealed a clear outline. It was a human, with 2 strands of white hair floating in front of his forehead. His face, temperament, expression, and even his height and body shape were exactly the same as Qin Hao. Brother Dog could no longer tell which one was real and which one was fake. It was too scary. Ah no, it was too scary. Success! Qin Hao was overjoyed. He stood up, and the tiredness on his face was swept away by his excitement. Qin Hao, who was opposite him, nodded at him, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously rose into a smirk. His smirk was very proud, because the thoughts of Aspect and Qin Hao were the same. However, in the next second, before Qin Hao could be satisfied, there was a bang sound, and the Aspect exploded, turning into a tiny wisp of dragon spirit smoke, and went back into Qin Hao's body. Woof! The dog spirit was stunned, as if to say, "What's going on? What just happened? Is it a new cultivation method? Did it fail?" The dog spirit hadn't seen the power of Aspect, and it disappeared. It's my first time condensing Aspect, so I'm not very familiar with it. Sorry." Qin Hao touched his head and laughed. The dissipation of Aspect didn't affect him at all. Although it had everything that Qin Hao had in terms of soul, the two were not the same. The soul of Aspect was the dragon spirit. This was the essential difference between it and Qin Hao, and it might also be the only weakness of Aspect, because the soul of the dragon spirit wasn't as strong as Qin Hao's. Of course, it would slowly grow and become stronger bit by bit. However, even now, no one below the Emperor level dared to underestimate this Aspect. After all, the dragon spirit was at the early stage Yuan Arch. It seems that in the future I need to keep tempering. Qin Hao's divine sense swept across his dantian, and the dragon spirit was entrenched inside again. Aspect techniques were the same as other martial arts techniques. They were also divided into small success, large success, perfection, pinnacle, extreme, and even after the extreme realm, there was still the ultimate realm. The more proficient one was in using it, the longer it could stay in the outside world. Once it was cultivated to the extreme realm, it could roam freely in the vast world. It was equivalent to a second Qin Hao wandering the world. Of course, as long as Qin Hao was willing, he could summon it back to his side with a thought. Even without tearing space, Qin Hao's body could reach the position of Aspect in an instant. This was the power of the primordial magic power. And Aspect techniques were the most perverted consummate skills among the many ancient magical techniques. Why did that ball of intense light suddenly disappear? Isn't my treasure going to be ruined? Suddenly, a strange voice came from below the hill. Qin Hao couldn't help but look down. It wasn't Ning Chaofan or Xianyuan Chemical. Qin Hao didn't know these two figures at all. They should be the martial artists on the fifth platform who were innocently swept into the mystic realm by the vortex. When Qin Hao looked at them, the two of them happened to look up and meet Qin Hao's gaze. One of them couldn't help but be overjoyed. It seems that the treasure is not ruined. This time we are going to be rich. What they saw was the white-haired martial artist who had absorbed the dragon spirit. Almost instantly, they understood that the intense light they saw from afar must be Qin Hao refining the dragon spirit. Since they were here, it wouldn't be Qin Hao's turn to refine the dragon spirit. In fact, the two of them had already spoken recklessly. Standing below the hill, they arrogantly pointed at Qin Hao's nose and said, "Hey, white-haired brother, where's your dragon spirit? Why did you take it back when you saw us coming? Why don't you let it out and let everyone absorb it?" Chapter 1193. Yes, yes. As the saying goes, those who see it have a share. Don't you think it's too much and a waste to swallow the dragon spirit of Coiling Dragon Mountain alone? Release it for us brothers to absorb it together. You don't have any objections, right? The other person sneered. His tone was unfriendly as he slowly walked towards the hill. He looked at Qin Hao as if he was looking at an ant. Qin Hao's aura was that of a 9-star monarch. How could he be compared to them? A casual move from them was enough to teach Qin Hao a lesson. They could kill him however they wanted. In fact, even if Qin Hao resisted, he would only be adding a corpse to the pile. As for the dog spirit beside Qin Hao, he was completely ignored by the two martialists. Early first level Yuan Venerate, late first level Yuan Venerate. Qin Hao scanned the two of them with his consciousness and was speechless. They were simply trash. Who had given them such an indomitable spirit? Who had given them the courage to clamor at him? You seem to be very helpless. Why? Are you very unconvinced? At that moment, the two martialists had already walked up to Qin Hao. One of them even pushed Qin Hao's chest contemptuously. His chest. Yes, I do feel very helpless. Qin Hao spread his arms and sighed. These two idiots didn't even have the desire to let him use his Dharma projection. Killing them with his Dharma projection was an insult. It was an insult to his own abilities. Cut the crap. Hurry up and release the dragon spirit so that I can absorb it. Also, while I'm not angry, you better get lost as far as you can. The other person glared at Qin Hao fiercely. If he didn't do as he was told, he would kill him with his sword. You want to seize my dragon spirit? Qin Hao was slightly stunned. Isn't it obvious? Hurry up, we are in a hurry. One of the martialists was extremely impatient. They had been very confused and terrified at first after being inexplicably sucked into this space. They had been fleeing for a long time, but they couldn't find the exit at all. Later, they weren't afraid anymore. Instead, they were ecstatic. This space was filled with many strange treasures. In the past few days, they had found many king-level medicinal herbs and some ores. Once they left, they would be rich. They didn't know how long this space would last. In short, they just wanted to collect as many treasures as possible before they left. It was precisely the commotion caused by Qin Hao refining the dragon spirit that had attracted them here. They believed that a supreme treasure had appeared here. However, this was not the case in the end. However, Qin Hao's value was far greater than that of a precious treasure. Why aren't you releasing your dragon spirit? Do you want to see blood? Whoosh. Seeing Qin Hao dilly-dallying, a martial artist decisively drew his sword. Wait, I'll release. Seeing this, Qin Hao quickly nodded in agreement. At the same time, he activated his Transcendence Mystique. Don't you want the dragon spirit? I'll give it to you. Whoosh. A white shadow flew out of Qin Hao's body. The dragon spirit rushed out of Qin Hao's dantian and pounced towards a martial artist. It really is a dragon spirit. Why did it become so small? My little baby, come quickly, ha ha ha. The martial artist's eyes lit up, and he was extremely surprised. He couldn't help but reach out his hands. The dragon spirit came into his arms. Although the dragon spirit had become small, its aura was still extremely powerful. Just as the martial artist reached out his hands, a strange change occurred. The dragon spirit shook out a light, shook its body, and turned into Qin Hao's appearance. 2 strands of white hair fluttered, and a finger pierced towards the martial artist's forehead. Even the tone when releasing the move was exactly the same as Qin Hao's. Golden finger. Whoosh. This finger came quickly and suddenly. The scene of the dragon spirit turning into Qin Hao had already shocked the martial artist silly. How could he care about fighting back? Seeing this finger, it was about to sink into his forehead. Pung! Suddenly, when the Dharma idol was getting closer and closer to the martial artist, and the finger was about to sink into his forehead, it exploded and turned back into a tiny dragon that flew back into Qin Hao's body. Qin Hao was stunned. The first time the Dharma idol attacked, it was too disappointing. Before it succeeded, the time limit was up. Although the kill failed, at this moment, the martial artist on the other side was so shocked that his eyes widened. His feces and urine came out, and his feet were wet with urine. He was just a hair away from dying. The Dharma idol's finger that was about to enter his head carried with it an aura of death that crazily devoured the martial artist's mind, leaving him with an indelible shadow. He was so scared that he couldn't speak. What the hell was that? Oh my God, what the hell was that thing just now? After frantically gasping for breath 3 times, the martial artist came back to his senses and looked at his companion with fear in his eyes. You dare to trick us? Brat, you're courting death. His companion shouted angrily, his face full of shame for being deceived. The long sword in his hand rolled up the revered level aura, and he did not hesitate to attack Qin Hao's head. As the sword fell, the running pace became faster and faster. Sigh, it seems that I have to do it myself. Complaining to the Dharma idol in his heart, Qin Hao's fingertip condensed a dazzling light. Boom! At this moment, a scorching hot breath spewed up to Qin Hao's side, and the flames spread over the 2 martial artists. Clang! The running martial artist's long sword fell to the ground, and his footsteps came to a stop. His charred body was gently swept by the breeze, and scattered into black flying ashes, which were mercilessly blown away. His companion behind him was the same, leaving behind a pool of sorrowful urine, and disappeared without a trace. Only a sparkling spatial ring in the bushes told the world about it. There was once a martial artist standing here. Burp! The dog spirit let out a burp, and with a roll of his tongue, he sucked back the flames that were raging between his teeth. Then, he anxiously pushed a big leaf on the ground to Qin Hao's feet. All right, you win. Qin Hao dispersed the light at his fingertip. Brother Dog's actions were quite fast, and he walked forward, kept the 2 space rings, and turned around with a smile. Woof woof roar! The dog spirit unhappily smashed the big leaf on the ground twice with his paws, as if urging it. This is? Qin Hao only noticed the big leaf on the ground now. It was originally used to hold water, and after he woke up, he did not pay much attention to it. Now that he looked at it carefully, he felt that it was very eye-catching. Right. It's the leaf of the beast spirit tree. Qin Hao finally remembered, and could not help but exclaim in shock. Roar ah-woo-woo! The dog spirit raised his head and let out a series of long howls as if saying, Damn you, I finally remember. Haha, sorry brother dog, where did you find it? Let's go and pick the beast spirit fruit. Qin Hao patted the dog spirit's head apologetically. The beast spirit fruit was very beneficial to brother dog. However, in order to protect him, he found the beast spirit tree, but did not have time to eat the beast spirit fruit, and hurriedly came back with the spring water. Now, from the growth of the leaf, the beast spirit fruit was already ripe, and it was definitely not young. He could only hope that no one had taken it yet. Roar, roar, woof! The dog spirit lifted his paw and pointed to the southeast of the hill, indicating that he found it there. It was not far, only about 7 to 8 miles away. Haha, easy, wait there, I'll get it for you. Only 7 to 8 miles, Qin Hao did not care about it at all. He circulated the yuan qi in his body, flapped his huge wings that emitted scorching hot flames, and stepped on the ground, ready to fly. Looking at Qin Hao in the air, the dog spirit raised his head, and his eyes were full of sympathy. Bang! Following which, Qin Hao, who was less than 10 meters in the air, screamed in panic and fell heavily, his head stuck in the soil. Chapter 1194. The spiritual beast fruit, as the name suggested, was a strange fruit eaten by magical beasts. It had no grade, and the older it was, the more power it contained. Although it had no grade, its unripe green fruit was comparable to an 8th-grade medicinal herb. When the fruit was ripe, it would be more powerful. However, it was useless for martial artists to eat it. Because of its uniqueness, it was very rare in the mainland. Even in the undeveloped primitive forest in the western Liang Medicine Valley, it was very difficult to find a spiritual beast fruit. Brother Dog's luck was really good to find one in the secret realm. Why didn't you tell me that I can't fly in this space? Rubbing the sore bridge of his nose, Qin Hao was in so much pain that tears were about to flow out. He glanced at the high leg beside him, valiant and spirited. Ong, the big dog, was as proud as the master of the Medicine Valley. The dog still had an indifferent expression. In fact, the dog spirit thought that Qin Hao had noticed that there was a strange seal in the space. After all, when Qin Hao was awake, he spent a lot of time feeling the composition of the space element. However, who knew that he used the time to understand his own situation? Therefore, he neglected the restriction in the sky. Sigh, what a cold-blooded dog, it hurts my heart. Qin Hao continued to rub his nose. In his previous life and this life, he had never been so humiliated like just now. In a sober state, he plunged his head into the soil. If outsiders saw this, wouldn't they laugh their teeth off? He was the famous Dendi, okay? Fortunately, Han didn't see it, and neither did the old demon. If the old demon saw it, he would definitely laugh at Qin Hao for half a year. At this moment, he suddenly thought of Gua Di. He remembered that Gua Di was best at poking the ground with his head, so he must be very experienced. After walking for nearly 2 hours, Qin Hao and the dog spirit finally arrived at the place where the spiritual beast tree grew. It was very big, very thick, very tall, and had luxuriant leaves. It stood beside a stream. The water was very clear, and one could see the bottom at a glance. It made people have the urge to lean over and drink. It was not clear how long this spiritual beast tree had lived. It towered more than 100 feet tall, majestic, like a strong warrior guarding this land. It grew because it was close to a water source. It was so good. Moreover, the basin-sized golden fruit hung on the tree like the sun. It was so dazzling that it blinded everyone's eyes. There were a total of 10 fruits like this. Qin Hao knew very well that the spirit beast fruit's initial state was only the size of a walnut. Since the spirit beast tree in front of him was so huge, it must be at least a few hundred years old. To be honest, Qin Hao couldn't help but drool. If it were any other magical beast present, they would probably go crazy with excitement. However, when the dog spirit arrived, it was only stunned for a moment before it leaped up without hesitation. It bit off a large leaf and filled it with water from the nearby stream before returning to Qin Hao's side. It was clear that Qin Hao must be very thirsty. He had consumed a lot of spiritual energy and held on for so long. He was already exhausted. Even in his dreams, he was thirsty. One could imagine how thirsty he was. Good brother dog. Qin Hao crouched down and hugged the dog spirit's neck. Woof, woof, roar. The dog spirit struggled and rolled its eyes as if saying, "Don't give me that, I'm not interested in a man's embrace." Wow, my God, what the hell is that thing on the tree? Why is it so big? The fragrance it emits is so strong, its grade must not be low. It must be at least grade 8. We're rich this time, ha ha ha. Just as Qin Hao and the dog spirit were talking, suddenly, there was a surprised laughter. A group of cultivators were laughing crazily from afar. They opened their arms and ran towards the towering tree. They were so excited that it was as if they had seen a peerless beauty. Someone's coming. Qin Hao immediately stood up. Roar, woof, 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 woof. The dog spirit let out a series of anxious barks. Its paws kept kicking up the soil as if to say, It's all your fault. Why did you hug me? Someone else beat you to it. Don't worry, the 10 spirit beast fruits on the tree are all yours, not a single one can escape. Qin Hao's face darkened, and he also walked towards the opposite side. Hey friends, I found these fruits first. But you guys are hugging the tree so tightly like a beauty, it doesn't seem very good. In front there were 5 people. 2 of them were holding hands, excitedly running around in circles. The other 3 were hugging the tree together, their 3 faces rubbing against the bark as if they were burying their heads in the chest of a beauty, intoxicated and unable to control themselves. Forbidden. Oh! Hearing Qin Hao's voice, the 2 cultivators who were holding hands and jumping around in circles were stunned for a moment, and then quickly let go of their hands, lest they be misunderstood as gay. Immediately after, the 5 of them. Their eyes fell on Qin Hao at the same time. Friend, isn't it inappropriate for you to say that? We obviously saw it first. How can you lie? Your lying level is so lazy, you can't even fool a child. The 5 cultivators sneered together, lined up side by side, and turned into a human wall to block Qin Hao, preventing him from getting close to the spirit beast tree. Moreover, the 5 of them actively operated their pneuma, ready to strike at any time. To be honest, just 4 days ago, my dog found this tree, but because of my injury, I couldn't pick the fruit. Until today, my injury has recovered, so I can pick the fruits while I'm at it. Let's go. Please do me a favor and don't make things difficult for me. If you quit, I'll pay you a generous compensation fee as compensation. Qin Hao argued. Everything he said was the truth. The spirit beast tree was indeed found by Brother Dog first, but even if it wasn't, the first one to arrive just now was Qin Hao. Ah! The 5 cultivators all laughed. Who are you kidding? Little brother, your joke isn't funny at all. Don't you just want to share the fruits with us? Why are you being so secretive? Hypocrite! To tell you the truth, we won't give up a single one of these 10 fruits. Get lost if you know what's good for you. Otherwise, swords have no eyes. A ferocious-looking, burly man carrying a broad axe, the fierce-looking cultivator, threatened Qin Hao. Qin Hao's brows furrowed. It seemed that it was impossible to reason with them. Everyone, I understand your feelings. How about this, let's not talk about who found it first. What is this tree? What are the effects of the fruits? Do you know? Qin Hao said, still wanting to give them one more chance. Even if the 5 of them obtained the spirit beast fruit, it would be useless to eat it. It might even cause discomfort and damage their meridians. What are the effects of the fruits? Why don't you tell us? If it's reasonable, I can consider making things easier for you. Among the 5 cultivators, a blue-clothed cultivator with the strongest aura seemed to be the temporary leader. He said with a smile, ignoring the others' anxiousness. He secretly gave a look to a skinny guy beside him. Immediately, the skinny, sharp-mouthed cultivator took out an old ancient book from his space ring and flipped it open. He pointed his finger at the table of contents and was ready to check. It wasn't hard to guess that the skinny cultivator was an alchemist and knew some herbs. Thank you. Qin Hao cupped his hands. Finally, there was someone reasonable. He pointed to the tree behind them and said sincerely, "This tree is the spirit beast tree. The fruit it produces is called the spirit beast fruit. It is only effective for magical beasts. Because of the different body structures, human cultivators can't refine it. Moreover, the spirit beast fruit can backfire and damage the meridians and organs." Chapter 1195. Brother Monkey, the blue-robed martial artist muttered. N. The skinny man nodded. His finger quickly searched through the catalogue. After flipping through more than 10 pages, he finally found the record of the spirit beast fruit. He was overjoyed. The further back the name of the herb was, the more precious it was. But after reading the introduction, his joy turned into helplessness. What Qin Hao said was exactly the same as in the ancient book. The skinny man raised his head and looked at Qin Hao with a surprised expression. Brother, that's a brilliant idea. His ancient book was an accidental treasure hunt. The amount of information recorded on the herbs was shocking. There were even records of herbs that had disappeared from the mainland for a long time. He could not remember. Qin Hao could easily identify the use of the spirit beast fruit. It could be seen that his knowledge of herbs was strong. This, the skinny man's brilliant idea, made everyone understand that Qin Hao was not lying. The big golden fruit on the tree was a supplement for magical beasts. It was useless for humans. They were disappointed and heartbroken. They decided to give up the fight. But the leader of the blue-robed martial artists was not as dejected as the others. He was very calm. His eyes fell on the dog spirit behind Qin Hao. His eyebrows furrowed and he suddenly understood. Qin Hao needed the spirit beast fruit to feed the dog. The blue-robed martial artist despised him. Feeding the dog was too wasteful. However, since it was useful to Qin Hao, it had value. The blue-cloved cultivator's lips curled up as he said generously to Qin Hao, "You are very lucky. We managed to obtain the fruits on the tree. We can give it to you. But the spirit beast fruit is not ordinary. Moreover, there are 10 of them. What treasures are you prepared to exchange with us to make up for our losses?" When the others heard, their eyes lit up. They gave the blue-robed martial artist a thumbs up. Boss was reliable. 50,000 earth crystals. Qin Hao stretched out 5 fingers. But before he could finish, he was coldly interrupted by the tall and fierce martial artist. "Brat, are you trying to dismiss a beggar? What about yours? Are you looking down on us?" In his opinion, 50,000 earth crystals was indeed a lot, but their team had 5 people. On average, each person would only get 10,000 earth crystals, which was too little. Listen carefully. What I mean is 50,000 earth crystals per person. Since there are 5 of you, I can give you 25 as compensation, Qin Hao said coldly. He was getting impatient. No one had ever dared to do this before. He interrupted himself. 10,000? The ferocious warrior was shocked, exchanging glances with the others. At this moment, they were all tempted. If it weren't for the fact that the blue-clothed martial artist hadn't spoken yet, they would have agreed without hesitation. After all, the beast spirit fruit was of no use to them. Too little. The martial practitioner in blue narrowed his eyes and let out a light snort. He spread out his hands and stretched out 10 fingers. 100,000. We'll take 100,000 earth crystals each. No. The other 4 sighed. 250,000 was not a small sum. Boss had doubled the profit with a simple sentence. It was a bit like extortion. But they liked it. Sure. Qin Hao nodded and agreed without hesitation. For Brother Dog, he was not stingy at all. The blue-clothed martial artist couldn't help but be taken aback. It was a bit out of his expectations. He thought that both sides would at least bargain for a while. Qin Hao didn't even frown. He was so generous. "Boss, I'm afraid this kid is a super invincible fat sheep. The kind that is overflowing with wealth. Why don't we?" The ferocious warrior secretly made a killing gesture, meaning that he would pretend to agree to Qin Hao and give him 10 fruit. They would kill him when he wasn't prepared. All of Qin Hao's belongings were his. All the treasures belonged to the 5 of them. Slap. The blue-clothed martial artist slapped the ferocious warrior's face and shouted angrily, "Shameless, short-sighted. Is that all you have? Once we take the beast spirit fruit out, we'll put it on display. At the Ningwu Empire's upcoming auction, many Emperor Stage Almighties will not hesitate to spend a lot of money to fight for their mounts. How much money will that be?" "Boss is brilliant." "Haha, boss, I was wrong." The ferocious warrior was about to explode after being slapped, but in the next moment, his anger turned into a mischievous grin and he quickly apologized to the blue-clothed martial artist. At the same time, He looked at Qin Hao with even more vicious eyes. Qin Hao frowned. Friend, what do you mean? Who the hell is your friend? What I mean is very simple. Give me your spatial ring and your wealth will belong to me. Of course, the beast spirit fruits on the tree will also be ours. Also, the blue-clothed martial artist licked his lips and looked at Qin Hao with greedy eyes. Also, release your dragon spirit and cripple your own cultivation. Get ready to come with us to see Xianyuan Chemical, ha ha ha. The blue-clothed martial artist laughed wildly. From the beginning, he felt that Qin Hao's hairstyle was very familiar. Only now did he remember. Wasn't it the white-haired old man who had absorbed the coiling Dragon Peak's array dragon spirit? Moreover, the conflict between the white-haired old man and Xianyuan Chemical had already spread at the foot of the mountain before the coiling dragon wonder opened. Both sides had an irreconcilable hatred for killing his brother. Once Qin Hao was handed over to Xianyuan Chemical, it would be a great merit and there would be many benefits. Snatching Qin Hao's spatial ring, plucking the fruits on the tree and auctioning them off, and finally handing over Qin Hao to his enemy was killing 3 birds with 1 stone. The blue-clothed martial artist's scheming was extremely sinister. Boom! The other 4 martial artists were shocked. They all looked at Qin Hao and sized him up carefully. Only then did they realize that Qin Hao was the white-haired martial artist who had absorbed the dragon spirit. Ha ha ha! We've struck it rich this time. We've struck it rich. The fierce-looking martial artist laughed heartily. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 4 balls of yuan qi erupted without holding back. All of them had reached the venerate level. The skinny martial artist was the weakest, a 3rd-level yuan venerate. The fierce-looking martial artist was a 5th-level yuan venerate. The other 2 were 4th-level yuan venerate. Of course, the strongest was their leader, the blue-clothed martial artist, whose cultivation base had reached the 8th level. In comparison, Qin Hao, who was only a 9th-level yuan venerate, was undoubtedly a sheep facing a tiger or a leopard. So you've been toying with me from the start. You never intended to make a fair deal. Qin Hao gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He had given them a chance repeatedly and hadn't wanted to cause trouble. However, they had taken advantage of him and taken advantage of him. Their ambitions had swelled and they couldn't be satisfied. So what if I've been toying with you? You can only blame yourself for being stupid. If I were you, I would have hidden and absorbed the dragon spirit long ago. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been unable to protect myself with my current cultivation base. Yes. TSK. Trash. The blue-clothed martial artist spat and waved his hand. Go. Remember, don't kill him. We still have to bring him to Xianyuan Chemical, and let him slowly torture him. Let him be tortured to death. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 4 balls of venerate aura shot toward Qin Hao violently. Brother dog, kill him. Qin Hao's feet shook the ground as his yuan qi surged. He leaped high, scuttled over the heads of the 4 martial artists, and went straight for the strongest youth in blue. Qin Hao would personally kill him. This vicious and sinister scum would be slain by his palm. Roar. The dog spirit also moved. Although it was only a 4th-level venerate beast, it had been infected by the red lotus fire for many years, causing it to mutate and possess the ability to use flames. Furthermore, it had obtained the Beast Emperor's inheritance. Even though the dog spirit hadn't been completely refined, it had still absorbed 10% of the Beast Emperor's power and was far superior to the 4 ordinary human martial artists. Chapter 1196. Qin Hao went past the 4 of them, but they didn't give chase. They were very confident in the strength of the youth in blue. Qin Hao's fate would be even worse if he rushed over. However, it would be too shameful to let 4 human yuan venerates join forces to deal with a dog. No one is allowed to come over. Watch me smash its head, roast it, and eat it, the fierce martialist shouted. He wanted to fight the dog spirit one-on-one as he swung the axe on his shoulder. Roar! Brother Dog didn't panic in the face of danger. It lowered its head and the axe light swept across its head. Its tail extended forward and turned into a python that coiled around the fierce martialist's right arm. Under the other party's shocked expression, he was flung 100 meters away and crashed heavily into a huge tree, breaking it. The fierce martialist who had fallen to the ground spat out a mouthful of blood. What astonishing explosive power! This dog is not simple. Let's work together to destroy it. The skinny man shouted. Alchemists were more sensitive, and this attack was enough to show the ferocity of a 5th-level Yuan Venerate. The martialist was simply no match for the dog spirit. In fact, the fierce martialist spoke at the same time. He endured the pain of his ruptured organs and shouted, "What are you standing there for? Come and help me!" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 3 of them attacked immediately. 2 of the 4th-level Yuan Venerates unsheathed their swords and sent huge sword lights at Brother Dog. The skinny martialist was rather quick-witted as he circled behind Brother Dog and launched a sneak attack. Boom! Brother Dog raised its head and spat out a breath at the 2 sword lights. The sword lights disintegrated in the flames and the breath melted the swords of the 2 martialists. What? How can this be? The 2 of them hurriedly retreated and looked at the bare sword hilts in their hands in horror. The swords in their hands were peak monarch weapons that they had comprehended on the 5th platform. They were mediocre because they couldn't comprehend venerate weapons. However, they shouldn't have been melted by a breath of the big dog. The big dog's flames were too fierce. How could Brother Dog miss the opportunity to attack? It leaped up like a ferocious tiger and slapped one of the martialist's heads with its sharp paw. The martialist's head was crushed under its claws. The 4th-level Yuan Venerate couldn't even withstand a single blow. The remaining 4th-level Yuan Venerate immediately turned pale and wet himself in fright. Qin Hao wasn't worried at all when he heard the sounds of an intense battle behind him. Given Brother Dog's capabilities, he wouldn't be defeated even by a level 7 Yuan Venerate after activating his mysterious flame dog body. Those 4 Yuan Venerates were simply no match for him. Pay the price for your greed. As he approached, Qin Hao punched out at the blue-robed youth. Circulating the indestructible samsara art, his fist burst out with a golden light. The other party was a level 8 Yuan Venerate whose cultivation was about to surpass his by 1 heavenly cycle. Although Qin Hao had broken through to the 9-star monarch stage, he still didn't dare to be careless. He released a divine tier cultivation technique and the power of the dragon soul at the same time. Even if the youth in blue was a level 9 Yuan Venerate, he would still lose a layer of skin even if he didn't die. But to Qin Hao's surprise, the blue-clothed youth did not treat him with caution. Instead, he clenched his right hand into a fist and simply punched back at Qin Hao. Pung! After the heavy collision, Qin Hao felt a huge force coming from his hand. His body was sent flying and his fist was aching faintly. The blue-clothed youth didn't have it easy either. He groaned and blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. He stumbled back 7 or 8 steps in a very sorry state. Clearly, he had severely underestimated Qin Hao's strength. Yuan Soul Realm Martialist! Yuan Soul Realm Martialist! The 2 of them exclaimed at the same time. This blue-clothed youth actually possessed a Yuan Soul Realm, so his strength was much stronger than an ordinary Yuan Venerate's. I see. It's no wonder that a mere level 9 Yuan Monarch like you can step onto the Divine Soldier platform of Coiling Dragon Peak. You do have some qualifications. However, you can only tremble at my feet. The blue-clothed youth wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and spread his arms angrily. Yuan Soul, open for me. 1. A wisp of green smoke appeared behind him. Within the smoke, a towering tree grew out of the ground. The blue-clothed martialist's Yuan Soul was a tree soul, which belonged to the wood element. Whoosh! Qin Hao swung his hand and the great void sword exuded a sharp killing intent. Since the other party was in Yuan's soul realm martialist, he deserved to be taken seriously. It's your honor to die under my Yuan soul realm. 5 Vine absolute kill, the blue-clothed youth shouted. 5 thick tree branches extended from his back and turned into steel whip-like vines. They coiled around Qin Hao's legs, arms, and neck in an attempt to tear apart Qin Hao's body. Fleeting sword. Qin Hao stepped forward and flicked his wrist. 5 streaks of fleeting sword chi shot toward the vines in the blink of an eye and collided with each other. However, the 5 streaks of sword chi didn't cut the vines in half. Instead, the sword chi shattered and the vines coiled around him. What a sturdy Yuan soul! Qin Hao immediately retreated and used his great void sword to block the whip-like vines. The quality of your sword is quite good. You should have comprehended it at the Divine Soldier platform, right? However, it will soon belong to me, the blue-clothed youth said in surprise. Qin Hao had a lot of treasures on him, so he couldn't help but refine them. Yuan Qi poured into the Yuan soul realm behind him again, and the 5 waving vines became even fiercer and fiercer. Is that so? Let's try this move again. Red Lotus exploding flame blade. Qin Hao changed from holding the sword in one hand to holding it with both hands. Gritting his teeth, he activated the power of another Yuan soul realm and poured the Red Lotus tyrannical fire into the sword. He turned around and slashed at the 5 vines in the distance. Boom! A 20-foot-long flame slash that emitted a burning aura like magma came down from the sky. This time, the 5 vines were chopped into pieces and burned to ashes. Moreover, the Red Lotus fire followed along the broken vines crazily spread toward the towering tree. Ah! The blue-clothed youth screamed loudly and quickly cut off the 5 vines. For the first time, panic appeared in his eyes. The fire origin spirit naturally restrained the wood origin spirit. It seemed that the white-haired old man did not only have one origin spirit, but also 2 origin spirits. Damn it! 1,000 vines wreaking havoc. The blue-clothed martial artist did not dare to hold back anymore. His palms formed several seals, and the Yuan Qi in his body turned into a raging river and rushed into the origin spirit giant tree. The giant tree suddenly rose and rose several feet. Its majesty was not inferior to the 100-foot spirit beast tree. It was very spectacular. At the same time, thousands of vines danced in the air. In the next second, they scrambled to wrap around Qin Hao. This was the full strength of the blue-clothed youth. Ah, no matter how many come, the result will be the same. Qin Hao waved his hand and the great void sword disappeared. Then, he raised his palms above his head and the Red Lotus fire chi in his palms became even more turbulent. A dragon's roar sounded and the dragon's power increased to 40%. Fierce dragon scales appeared on Qin Hao's face. His voice shook the sky as he shouted, "Flame Dragon Revolving Sky Slash." The earth trembled under Qin Hao's terrifying Yuan Qi. The 100-foot-tall spirit beast tree let out a rustling sound. The river beside it suddenly became turbulent, creating waves that were several meters high. Flowers. When the thousands of vines rolled over, Qin Hao had already gathered a dazzling giant fireball above his head. The fireball was fiercely pushed into the air by him. Roar! The dragon's might filled the sky. The blue-clothed martial artist was shocked to see the fireball explode in the air. A 100-foot-long fire dragon flew out from the fireball. The dragon's body was covered in raging flames, and it crashed into his origin spirit giant tree. No! The blue-clothed youth despaired. The power of the fire dragon was enough to kill him. He did not hesitate and turned to run. He was too lazy to even take back his origin spirit. How could Qin Hao let him do as he wished? He controlled the fire dragon, and it flew over the origin spirit giant tree and exploded on the body of the blue-clothed youth. Bang! A mushroom cloud rose up. Chapter 1197. Along with the blue-clothed youth's pitiful cry, the 100-foot-tall source spirit tree exploded with a ping sound and disappeared between heaven and earth. But the blue-clothed youth did not die. His body was in tatters as he lay in a black hole. Both his arms were broken and his face was filled with pain. Soul essence cultivators are much stronger than normal cultivators. Even after being hit by the Jade Sky Slash, he didn't die. Qin Hao walked over and stepped on the back of the blue-clothed youth. "Brother, let's talk nicely. Didn't you want the spirit beast fruit? Now it's all yours." The blue-clothed youth quickly begged for mercy. "Pung!" Qin Hao punched him in the face. "The spirit beast fruit originally belonged to me." The blue-clothed youth spat out a bunch of broken teeth and his nose was smashed. "Yes, yes, yes, the fruit belongs to you and the tree also belongs to you. You can dig up the tree and plant it again to grow more fruits." That's a good idea." Qin Hao's eyes lit up as he looked at the spirit beast tree. It was thick and strong, over 100 feet tall, but his interspatial ring could hold it. "Since I came up with this idea, please spare my life. Moreover, I belong to you. Big brother, accept me as your little brother. The secret realm is very dangerous. Not only are there other cultivators, there are also strange things. I can help Big Brother deal with Xianyuan chemical. Of course, even with my arms broken, I can still control the ancient tree source spirit. Its might, Big Brother has already seen it. With a genius like me as your little brother, you will only profit. Moreover, I think Xianyuan chemical is extremely shameless. Daring to be Big Brother's enemy is the biggest mistake he has made in his life. I have decided to use the ancient tree source spirit to tear him apart and let him taste a life worse than death." "Taste?" The blue-clothed youth roared in an incomparably noble manner, his face solemn. "Poochie!" Qin Hao's finger pierced through his skull. The red lotus fire eroded his body and annihilated his soul. "Why?" the blue-clothed youth finally said with an unwilling look in his eyes. "Because you are not worthy," Qin Hao indifferently replied, pulling out his bloody finger. Help him deal with Xianyuan chemical? Perhaps when the time came, he would help Xianyuan chemical deal with Qin Hao. Qin Hao had experienced the word shameless from the blue-clothed young man just now. He would not make the same mistake again. More importantly, compared with Guadi, who was a proud and upright genius, the guy in blue was so lowly that he didn't deserve to be an underling. He didn't even deserve to carry Qin Hao's shoes. As the red lotus fire descended, the blue-robed young man was also reduced to ashes, and his divine soul was destroyed. At this moment, Brother Dog's battle had also come to an end. As the first enemy's head was smashed like a watermelon, the martial artist, who was so scared that he wet his pants, couldn't withstand the second move. Brother Dog used the big dog gouges out the heart, killing him on the spot. The skinny martial artist behind Brother Dog screamed in fright. Before he could do anything, his comrades had all died. Then, he saw the strongest blue-clothed youth being killed by Qin Hao. How could he dare to continue fighting? He broke into a run. What was surprising was that the monkey was also an Essence Soul Realm martial artist. Yellow smoke burst out from his back and his body turned into fine sand. His entire body shrank into the ground as he used the earth escape technique. Like a mound of dirt, it quickly disappeared 1,000 meters away. Roar! Looking at this scene, Brother Dog let out an angry roar. In fact, it didn't expect that the skinny martial artist, who seemed to be the weakest, was actually second only to the blue-robed young man in cultivation. He was ranked second. This skinny man was also very sinister. He might have deceived the blue-robed young man. However, if he escaped and attracted Xianyuan chemical or the coffin bearers, it would be very disadvantageous to Qin Hao's operation. A group of treacherous guys. Qin Hao gnashed his teeth in hatred. He was distracted for a moment and allowed the monkey to escape 1,000 meters away. The opponent's earth escape technique was very fast, not much slower than the water wind step. It was sand. The terrain was advantageous to him. Moreover, flying was not allowed in the secret realm. Qin Hao had just finished off the blue-robed young man and was a few seconds late. It was impossible for him to catch up. Whoosh! Qin Hao didn't have time to react. However, the dragon's shadow in his body was very sensitive. The dragon spirit in his dantian came out and transformed into the face of the Dharma idol. Its face was full of arrogance as it used the water wind step. Bu chased after the escaping mound, and the distance between the two of them was getting closer and closer. Qin Hao was stunned by this scene. He couldn't help but raise his fist and encourage, "The Dharma idol is mighty! He die!" The Dharma idol Qin Hao turned his head and smiled proudly at Qin Hao. With a flash of fire in his palm, the great void sword appeared out of thin air. He held the sword with one hand and pointed the sword at Qin Hao. Then, he poured the sword chi into the sliding mound beside him and stabbed it fiercely. At this time, the skinny man, who was curled up in the soil, only felt the shadow of death above his head. He couldn't help but cry out miserably, "I'm dead!" Bang! However, before this sword could stab down, the Dharma form suddenly collapsed, and the great void sword disappeared. A dragon spirit let out a sorrowful cry and flew back to Qin Hao's side in shame, disappearing into his dantian. Inside. Qin Hao was stunned. He really learned something. If you can't maintain it for long, don't go out and show off, okay? Why are you looking for excitement? Looking at the mound that had completely disappeared, he could no longer sense the aura of the monkey martialist. The other party had succeeded in escaping. Qin Hao sat down and sighed helplessly. The dragon spirit in his dantian was also very helpless. It had only obtained the Dharma idol for a few hours and was still relatively weak. However, as long as it was allowed to come out and gain more experience, the Dharma idol would become more proficient. Once the Dharma idol reached the small success stage, it would be more than enough to complete a simple battle. Master Dog, I was wrong. The strongest young man in blue had died. The 2 level 4 Yuan venerates had died. The monkey had run away without any loyalty. The remaining injured martialist could no longer be fierce. He crawled, knelt in front of the dog spirit, and kowtowed repeatedly. Bang! The dog spirit smashed the dog head of the fierce martialist with a slap. Previously, this person had said that he would smash his own head and roast it to eat it. In the next second, the dog spirit spat out a flame and roasted the corpse of the fierce martialist before swallowing it. Brother dog, catch! Qin Hao's golden finger flashed and a beast spirit fruit fell from the tree. The basin-sized golden beast spirit fruit was like a small sun falling down. The dog spirit was so excited that it jumped up high, opened its mouth, and swallowed it in one gulp. Burp! The dog spirit burped and looked at the remaining 9 fruits on the tree with a longing gaze. It rolled its tongue and drooled. However, it didn't eat a second fruit in the end. Instead, it went to Qin Hao's side, lay down, and went to sleep. For demonic beasts, they could refine the beast spirit fruit while they were sleeping. The refined energy could be maintained in the dog spirit's body for a long time, enough for it to digest and level up. Therefore, it was currently eating. No matter how many beast spirit fruits there were, it couldn't absorb all the energy at the same time. Chapter 1198. Translator. Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio. Becoming the Spear Emperor. As Brother Dog entered the refining state, Qin Hao decided to deal with the rest of the fruits first. He circled the beast spirit tree 3 times. The tree was very strong. It would take 5 adults to wrap their arms around it. However, Qin Hao did not pick the remaining 9 fruit. Instead, he took out a weapon that looked like a large steel shovel from his ring and started to dig under the tree. The warrior in blue was right. Digging up the tree and leaving it to grow more fruits would be more valuable. Qin Hao's space ring was big enough for him to plant it. After 6 hours, Qin Hao finally loosened the surrounding soil. Its roots were too deep, and the area it spread was too big. Luckily, Dendu was very experienced in digging in his previous life, and created a set of soil-throwing skills. Thus, he was able to dig up the surrounding soil quickly and efficiently. He also took a large amount of soil from the secret realm with the roots and put it into the space ring. After planting the tree in the space ring, Qin Hao released a stream of tranquil water to nourish its root. Finally, he looked at the 9 golden fruits on the tree with satisfaction before retracting his consciousness back into his body. He wiped the sweat off his face and sat beside the dog spirit. Brother Dog's cultivation must have improved a lot after waking up. Nodding, Qin Hao also prepared to absorb the 12 streams of spiritual energy in his body. He sat cross-legged. A few days ago, Brother Dog was protecting him. Now it was his turn to protect it. However, before absorbing the spiritual energy, there was something he had to deal with. Dragon Spirit Dharma Idol, I have something to discuss. Qin Hao transmitted his voice to his Dantian. If you dislike me, just say it. Why are you hesitating? An identical voice replied from his Dantian. Even the tone was cold and arrogant, and it called itself I. Qin Hao's eyes twitched, but he did not want to argue with the dragon spirit. He continued, I am not here to mock you. I just want you to understand that even if you are my Dharma idol, and we are of the same origin, we are brothers. Just now you used the divine artifact without saying anything, which made me feel very insecure. Then what do you want? Qin Hao's cold and arrogant voice sounded again, with a trace of dissatisfaction. It was not that he wanted to resist, but he knew that Qin Hao was going to split the family property with him. To be more precise, Qin Hao wanted to seize the Great Void Sword and not let the Dragon Spirit use it. Dragon Spirit felt wronged. They were all the same person and were equally handsome. Why couldn't he use it? That was too petty. Cough cough. Qin Hao coughed awkwardly and said, It's not that I'm stingy. You have my way of thinking, so you should understand that if we were to fight for the right to use the Great Void Sword in the future, we would be in a very disadvantageous situation and become a joke to others. The dragon spirit fell silent. Qin Hao was right. So I suggest that the Sky Extinction Spear belongs to you. In your consciousness, you have all the cultivation techniques that I cultivated in my previous life. It's not difficult to choose a heaven-class advanced spear technique that suits you. What do you think? Qin Hao said. The Sky Extinction Spear was made by Dendi for his subordinate, Tuoba Hao. General Tuoba fought to the death to protect Denda's dignity. Later, the Sky Extinction Spear fell into the hands of one of Zhan Wu's divine guards, Wu Lida. During the battle in the Imperial Mausoleum of Luoshui, Qin Hao killed Wu Lida and joined forces with Vivian to kill their ancestor, Wu Lily. Because of this, the Sky Extinction Spear returned to Denda's hands. During the time in the Imperial Mausoleum, Qin Hao fixed the loopholes of the Sky Extinction Spear so that it would not suffer any backlash. With the help of Vivian, the grade of the spear was sealed, and it fell from an imperial weapon to an honorable weapon. Now it was just right for Dharma power to use. No problem, the dragon spirit replied in Qin Hao's tone. Its tone was very arrogant and it was incomparably awesome. Even if I don't use my great void sword, my spear skills will definitely be the best in the world. I swear, I will become the most awesome spear emperor of this generation in the mainland. Are you convinced? Cough cough, I'm convinced. I definitely won't doubt that you will become the most awesome spear emperor of the mainland. Qin Hao was speechless. The dragon spirit's tone was indeed arrogant, but it had the right to be arrogant. Moreover, how could Qin Hao doubt its own ability? With his profound experience and vision in his previous life, if he focused on studying spear skills, it would not be difficult for him to become the most powerful spear emperor. It was just a matter of time. More importantly, 600 years ago, there was a guy who was called the Spear Emperor. Qin Hao had long thought that his spear skills were terrible, and he wanted to give him some pointers. In the end, that guy felt good about himself and even mocked Qin Hao for not knowing anything about spear skills. If not for the good relationship between the Spear Emperor and Zhan Wu, 600 years ago, Qin Hao would have already taught him a lesson with an arrow. It would be better to let Dharma power focus on spear skills and take away the title of Spear Emperor to vent his anger. Then it's settled. If I remember correctly, I have a total of 36 spear techniques in my mind. One of them is even the ancient spear technique. You can practice that ancient spear technique. Qin Hao happily patted his thigh. He was in a good mood. No, you remembered wrongly. In fact, there are a total of 37 spear manuals that have reached the peak of perfection. However, the strongest one is not the ancient spear manual. Instead, it was the time when you peaked at an emperor-level girl in the eastern continent. Shut up! Qin Hao suddenly jumped up and looked around vigilantly. Fortunately, there was no one around. Otherwise, there would be a big problem. Of course, he remembered that there were a total of 37 spear techniques. The reason why he said 36 was because he did not want to talk about the past. In the past, when he peeked at her, he was caught by the girl's father and beaten up. That fat beating was fatal. Qin Hao's face was swollen and he ran away in a sorry state. It was Denda's biggest stain. Moreover, only Zhan Wu, Han Lingxian and the 4 great generals knew about this. Even Wei Wei did not know. Back then, Qin Hao had threatened that if anyone dared to leak it, they would not be brothers anymore. Hee, now that we are no longer brothers, I don't know how that girl and uncle are doing now. Qin Hao lowered his head with a trace of sadness. Uncle's spear skills were world-shaking, but he was indifferent to fame and fortune. Otherwise, the Spear Emperor was Uncle's. Uncle had helped him and Zhan Wu. His and Zhan Wu's battle skills were greatly influenced and guided by Uncle. Zhan Wu, if you dare to touch her family, I swear. Unknowingly, Qin Hao could not help but tear up. He clenched his fists tightly. Zhan Lang, Yu Feng and the others could see through Zhan Wu's scheme. With that girl's intelligence, she could naturally see through it as well. Uncle was a good person who cared about his feelings. He would definitely kill his way to Sunset Peak to seek justice for himself. Qin Hao knew that no matter how good Uncle's spear skills were, he would not be a match for Zhan Wu who had the Sunset God Bow. The consequences could be imagined, but what could he do? There was nothing he could do at the moment. The dragon spirit was affected by Qin Hao. At this moment, it was also silent and emitted a sorrowful aura. Don't worry, I will let his spear skills go down in history. No, it should be us. We will work hard together and let his spear skills shine. His name will go down in history and become an immortal legend. Then, we will kill Zhan Wu with our own hands. The dragon spirit said. At this moment, Qin Hao had already noticed that the dragon spirit had begun to practice Uncle's spear skills. Chapter 1199. The dragon spirit transformed into the image of a small person, using qi to form a spear, shaped like a flood dragon, the spear aura like a tiger, according to the spear techniques taught by the uncle in his previous life. He began to practice each move in his dantian. He was meticulous, his moves exquisite and strict. Let's work hard together. Qin Hao's blood surged. He sat back down and absorbed the 12 strands of spirit energy. At the same time, he observed the Dharma idol practicing the spear. In his previous life, Qin Hao had become an emperor for 300 years, and his alchemy skills had reached the peak. In the next 300 years, he had nurtured the world's #1 killing weapon, the Sunset Divine Bow, and collected all kinds of martial arts manuals. There were tens of thousands of techniques in the world, and they were filled with endless mysteries. Sabers, spears, swords, halberds, pills, formations, artifacts, and runes, all of them could break through the restrictions of the heavenly Tao and transcend the wheel. This time, immortality. In the 300 years of continuous exploration, Qin Hao discovered that the speed of becoming a god through alchemy was faster than other methods. Alchemy was naturally superior to the sword Tao and array Tao. Strength. That was why Qin Hao trained hard in alchemy, using refining and array formations as support. His attainments in alchemy were unparalleled in the world. Not only did he suppress the other alchemists and alchemy emperors, even his bullshit spear was useless. Emperor, Saber Emperor, and Ho Emperor were also trampled to the ground. Unfortunately, in the end, Qin Hao was still wrong. He was too naive. Even if he became Dendi, with a wave of his hand, he would be able to refine a shocking pill that would allow other Emperor stage cultivators to successfully step into the Emperor stage. However, he was still unable to get rid of Denda's level and was unable to step into the pill god realm. Because of the inferior quality of the medicinal herbs on the continent, Qin Hao's footsteps were restricted and his dreams were shattered. If he wanted to become a god, he would have to obtain the divine medicine that grew in the divine realm. However, that was nonsense. If he could break through to the divine realm, how could he ascend to the divine realm and obtain the divine realm medicinal herbs? Thus, Qin Hao was unwilling to give up, so he rushed into the God Burial Valley with Zhan Wu and Han Lingxian. According to the legends of the East Continent, the God Burial Valley was an ancient battlefield where gods and demons fought. Qin Hao wanted to go there. Inside, he would obtain the opportunity to break through to the divine level. He had never thought that it was because of his recklessness, as well as the jealousy and fear of others. After all, Qin Hao had the ability to create emperors, which was a serious threat to other emperors. In the end, he was killed. Fortunately, I sacrificed my life for the chance to become a god. Qin Hao chuckled and probed his mind. The pocket-sized great void furnace floated quietly in the air, vibrating with energy. The purple-gold halo of divine power. Qin Hao had a divine item and a drop of God-Devil quintessence blood. Furthermore, the owner of that drop of God-Devil quintessence blood had helped Qin Hao destroy his mortal fleshly body in the blood pool at Broken Dragon Cliff. Creating a demigod body and cultivating the art of indestructible samsara, everything was tailor-made for Qin Hao. It would be difficult for him not to become a god. After his rebirth, Qin Hao's starting point was to become a god, and what he cultivated was a divine-grade cultivation technique. For the rest of the people on the continent, their starting point was martial artists. The difference between the two was a whole plane. The strength of a short 5 to 6 years of cultivation had surpassed Qin Hao's 100 years of hard training in his previous life. The speed of his advancement was unimaginable. I really have to thank the old senior who left behind the godly devil essence blood. One day, when I ascend to the divine realm, I have to find him and do something for him. Nodding, Qin Hao looked at Qin Hao. He heaved a sigh of relief and released the pressure in his heart. Thinking back to the process of the transformation at Broken Dragon Cliff, when the remnant soul left behind by the senior left, it revealed that he was still alive. It was likely that his status in the divine realm was not ordinary. Qin Hao was a person of principle. If others were good to him, he would repay them with 10 times or 100 times better. A drop of water would be repaid with a gushing spring. His mind swept across the Dharma form in his dantian again. The Dharma form's speed of spear training was even faster. Its entire body exuded incomparable confidence and a strong aura. Vaguely, the uncle's spear technique was showing signs of reaching a small success. As expected of my Dharma form, it has inherited all my strengths. Qin Hao shamelessly praised himself. At this moment, he was a little depressed. He was proficient in cultivation techniques and move. The Dharma form could be perfectly replicated. If it could be reversed, Qin Hao could also replicate the spear techniques that the Dharma form had cultivated. That would be too perfect. But he knew that it was a dream. The Dharma form was separated from the body. Although the techniques and consciousness were shared, the skills could only be honed through actual combat. However, even if it was just a blind dream, it still made Qin Hao feel very satisfied. He really wanted to not do anything and let the idiot Dharma form cultivate day and night. Then, Qin Hao could only watch helplessly as the Dharma form cultivated. His own realm leveled up, sitting and eating ready-made food. Hey, since the Dharma form is different from the doppelganger, if I summon the doppelganger technique again. Suddenly, Qin Hao, who was thinking nonsense, was frightened by the thought that flashed through his mind. This was completely possible. Although releasing a doppelganger technique would weaken the strength of the body. Moreover, the doppelganger technique's combat power was limited. However, under certain special circumstances, if the Dharma form and the doppelganger appeared in front of the enemy at the same time, they could definitely scare the enemy to death. The effect was very amazing. At this moment, Qin Hao was excited. If the Dharma form could also release the doppelganger technique, then the scene would be even more exciting. At that time, when fighting, 4 Dharma forms would appear at the same time. Qin Hao, 4 Dharma forms that had the body of a demigod, the power of 3 souls, and the Dendi who cultivated the indestructible samsara technique. You big idiot, what kind of sweet dreams are you having? My spear technique is about to reach the small success stage. You still have to quickly absorb the 12 streams of spiritual energy. Only when your realm is improved can I not be dragged down by you. After all, I am a beginner stage Yuan art. It's just that you are too weak, and I am restricted by you. Qin Hao's angry roar sounded in his body. This roar also woke up Qin Hao, who had fallen into a sweet dream. Unknowingly, the sky had already darkened, and night was about to arrive. Sorry, I will absorb the 12 streams of spiritual energy right now. Qin Hao focused his mind, operated his alchemy technique, and covered the blood essence. He was actually reprimanded by the Dharma form. Who was the real one? Was it the main body? However, I really want to ask you, can you use the doppelganger technique? Qin Hao couldn't calm down until he figured out this question. Yes, and my doppelganger technique may be more powerful than yours. Cloud Dragon Sea Covering. The Dharma form replied. Then, a small figure flew into the air from his dantian. Raising the spear, the light was incomparably dazzling. A cloud dragon coiled around the sky extinction spear. At this moment, the vitality in Qin Hao's dantian surged, forming monstrous waves. Roar. The cloud dragon roared and swooped down towards the huge waves below, carrying a shocking momentum. It had a terrifying feeling that it could pierce through Qin Hao's dantian. Halfway through the cloud dragon's flight, it suddenly ignited and turned into a fire dragon. The flames were blood-red. Oh my god, in such a short time, you actually mastered one of the 3 ultimate moves of Uncle's spear technique, Cloud Dragon Sea Covering, and N. Qin Hao's eyes widened. As he scanned through, he was shocked to the extreme. How was this Cloud Dragon Sea Covering? It was clearly the Fire Dragon's fall. The Dharma form actually improved Uncle's spear technique, using the indestructible reincarnation technique as the foundation and integrating the red lotus fire and the dragon's soul into the spear technique. The power was vast, and it was even more terrifying than what he saw from Uncle in his previous life. At this moment, Qin Hao was really about to faint. Chapter 1200. The fire dragon submerged into the tumbling Qi Sea. Soon after, the dantian returned to tranquility. This attack only contained the power of the spear, and did not possess any offensive power. Next, Fa Xiang once again immersed himself in cultivation, as if he didn't know what was going on. Qin Hao was ashamed of the weary machine's seriousness. Hard work, and hard work. I can't fall behind either. Qin Hao concentrated on absorbing the 12 strands of spiritual qi greedily. There would be many battles of various sizes in the mystic realm. The latest battle Qin Hao thought it would be within 3 days. The skinny martial artist who had escaped would definitely try to find Xianyuan chemical and lure him here so that he could kill him to vent his hatred. Qin Hao wasn't worried about Xianyuan chemical. He had the ability to fight him, and his chances of winning were very high. However, if they were up against the Nanming coffin-bearers, they would have no choice but to run. After all, the blue-clothed youth that he had killed before was actually not weaker than Xianyuan chemical. It was just that his soul source had been restrained by Qin Hao. As for the Southern Sea coffin-bearers, it was clear that regardless of realm, origin, soul, or foundation, his cards were all above the blue-clothed youth and Xianyuan chemical. Even the old demon, who had broken through to the half-step origin emperor realm, might not be able to defeat him. Increasing his strength was an urgent matter. 1 day and 1 night. At noon on the 3rd day, the dog spirit woke up. Just as Qin Hao had expected, Brother Dog's strength had improved a lot. It had advanced from the 4th level beast revered realm to the 6th level. In 1 day and 1 night, it broke through 2 levels. From the perspective of a human Yuan venerate, this increase was very frightening. This was all thanks to the spirit beast fruit. The energy from the spirit beast fruit had increased the speed of Brother Dog's assimilation of the inheritance. Of course, it had consumed more than half of the basin-sized fruit. The price was very expensive. Other than Brother Dog, Fa Xiang had also gained a lot. He was able to practice the entire spear codex smoothly. As for the specific effects, he would need to test it out in actual combat. Moreover, the 3 strongest attacks of the uncle were only of Dharma idol. He had only learned the first move, Cloud Dragon Sea Turner. Even if it was just this one move, it was enough to be proud of. After all, this move had been improved by Fa Xiang, and its power had been greatly increased. In comparison, Qin Hao's improvement was the least. He had used up the first 3 strands of spiritual energy. His cultivation base had risen from the initial stage of the 9th level Yuan Monarch realm to the late stage of the 9th level Yuan Monarch realm. He was still some distance away from the peak. How shameful! He couldn't be blamed for this. Qin Hao's physique was too special. Upgrading his demigod physique was even more difficult than upgrading an essence soul realm martial artist, let alone those ordinary martial artists. They were not on the same level. Moreover, the power of 3 souls needed to grow, and the realm needed to be raised. The amount of spiritual energy absorbed was limited in all aspects. He had already worked very hard. I'm really sorry, but I've tried my best. Qin Hao smiled. After a day and night of cultivation, he didn't feel tired at all. Instead, he felt refreshed because of the increase in his cultivation level. Roar, roar! Brother Dog rubbed its head against his body as if it was comforting him. Humph, progress is better than no progress at all. However, you need to work harder in the future, just like me. No, he's even more hard-working than me. A voice that belonged to him replied. His attitude was very arrogant and cold. Qin Hao felt warmth from Fa Xiang's cold tone. Fa Xiang was actually doing this for his own good. How could this be? Where did the tree go? Furthermore, there's a huge crater with a radius of more than 500 meters in front of us. What's going on? Qin Hao and the others had just finished their cultivation when a familiar voice sounded. It was undoubtedly the skinny warrior who had escaped. From afar, the skinny warrior walked over in a daze. He was holding a large compass disc in his hand, and his expression was very puzzled. He tried his best to observe his surroundings, thinking that he had remembered wrongly. However, he felt that he had been to this place before. Moreover, the large disc in his hand clearly showed that there were 2 powerful elemental energies flowing in this place. The aura and smell were very familiar. It was white hair. That's right. However, the skinny man still couldn't find the most iconic and powerful beast spirit tree. At this moment, he was extremely anxious. You dare to play with my young master? I think you're tired of living. With an angry shout, Xianyuan Chemical's gray-clothed subordinate grabbed the skinny warrior's neck and raised him high up. He was about to suffocate. Behind the gray-clothed subordinate was the cold-faced Xianyuan Chemical himself, as well as Captain Yamazaki, whose face was dirty and one of his arms was broken. At this moment, Captain Yamazaki was no longer a coward. When he led his troops to attack Lantian village, he was in an extremely sorry state. He even had the urge to die in his eyes. Thinking about it, their situation was similar to Qin Hao and the old demon. After entering the secret realm, they were scattered by the airflow and landed in different locations. Captain Yamazaki was very unlucky. He met other warriors and was robbed and ravaged. When he was being ravaged to the point where his life was worse than death, Xianyuan Chemical happened to find him and save his dog life. Because Qin Hao had been unconscious for 7 days and 7 nights, he still hadn't met up with Han and the old demon. Let him go. There are 2 auras here. He's not lying. Xianyuan Chemical noticed the abnormality and said. In fact, as soon as he finished speaking, Qin Hao took the initiative to stand up. Because the work of digging was very cold, they dug up more soil and piled it up into a small hill. The skinny warrior's line of sight was blocked by the hill. Therefore, he didn't see Qin Hao. However, when Qin Hao's head popped out from behind the hill, the skinny warrior was ecstatic. He said with snot and tears, "Young Master Chemical, look, this lowly one isn't lying. The enemy who killed your brother is right in front of you." As he spoke, the monkey martial artist cast an incomparably resentful gaze at Qin Hao. "What are you hiding for? Xianyuan Chemical almost misunderstood you. Aya, it really is the rebellious madman who killed the young master. He actually didn't run away. He's really stupid to the extreme." Captain Yamazaki suddenly became spirited. The urge to die suddenly disappeared. It was as if with the appearance of Qin Hao, Captain Yamazaki's life had become bright. It was just the right time to vent all the abuse and devastation he had suffered on him. On Qin Hao's body. That's right. Ha ha ha, this brat is so stupid. To be honest, I've been in the venerable stage for more than 50 years. This person is the stupidest person I've ever seen in my life. Like a pig. The gray-robed subordinate followed, ready to sweep everything away for his master. Stupid? I think it's you guys who are stupid. Qin Hao walked slowly in front of the crowd with Brother Dog, without any fear. It was time to completely settle the score with Xianyuan Chemical. It was time for a full stop. A mere trash Yuan king, without the protection of that wretched middle-aged servant, and without the protection of the vicious woman who kicked me, you brat, you don't know how to write the word death. He snorted coldly and was incomparably arrogant, as if he could stab Qin Hao to death with a single finger. In fact, in the next second, he spoke, "Eldest young master, please give this subordinate a chance to take this person down. Take him down and pave a broad road for you." Pow! Xianyuan Chemical was not stingy as he gave Yamazaki another slap. He really wondered how this Yamazaki was chosen by his father and promoted to captain of the cavalry. "Eldest young master, this person has the strength to kill a martial artist of the 8th step. This lowly one has seen it with his own eyes. You must not underestimate him. You must be careful," the skinny martial artist reminded. Pow! Xianyuan Chemical gave the skinny man another slap. "What do you mean? This young master is not as good as your leader? Does this count as an insult to our Nan Ao Xianyuan family?" Chapter 1201. Qian Qian. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Suppression and Counterattack. I wouldn't dare even if I had 10,000 lives. The skinny man knelt down. Eldest young master, why don't you let me test his cultivation first? The subordinate in gray asked anxiously. Slap. Xianyuan Chemical gave him a slap as well. You're so impatient. Are you trying to steal my credit and ask my father for a promotion and wealth? So that you can deprive me of the opportunity to become the next patriarch? Plop. The gray-robed subordinate looked extremely flustered. He knelt down in fear and raised his fist to swear, I'm innocent. I'm loyal to the eldest young master. Heaven and earth can be my witness. How could I dare to go against my master's heart? Xianyuan Chemical raised his hand again. Captain Yamazaki, the monkey martialist, and the subordinate in gray took 2 steps back, afraid that they would be slapped again. However, Xianyuan Chemical stroked his long hair and said, Get up. I have to kill this person personally. No one is allowed to step forward. If your hands are itchy, go kill that big dog and stew it into a pot of fragrant dog meat so that I can enjoy it after the battle. Ha ha ha. Wonderful. I'll go kill that big ugly dog and stew it for you. Add some spices and MSG to the dog meat so that it's full of fragrance. Yamazaki smiled as he took out the steel spear he had obtained from the divine soldier. Not only spices and MSG, but also chili. I like spicy food. Xianyuan Chemical clenched his fists. Understood! The 3 of them shouted loudly, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they surrounded Brother Dog. A 4th level Yuan Venerate, a 3rd level Essence Soul Yuan Venerate, and a peak 9th level Yuan Venerate. Brother Dog, can you hold on? Qin Hao sent a voice transmission secretly. Yuan Qi circulated all over his body as he locked his eyes on Xianyuan Chemical. He was ready to attack at any time with the Aqua Wind step. Roar! Brother Dog raised his head and roared confidently. Okay, I'll support you immediately after I kill Xianyuan Chemical. Go! Qin Hao used his Aqua Wind step and weaved through the 3 of them like a shadow. The wind stirred up caused Captain Yamazaki, who had the weakest cultivation, to spin 3 times. His speed is so terrifying. After Yamazaki stopped, his face was covered in cold sweat. With just a single movement technique, he was definitely not Qin Hao's opponent. Fortunately, he did not act impulsively just now. However, if Qin Hao were to fight against Xianyuan Chemical, only death awaited him. Kill! The gray-robed subordinate roared and pressed his palm toward Brother Dog's head. Captain Yamazaki's steel spear trembled as he attacked fiercely. Sandstorm! The monkey martial artist was well aware of Brother Dog's prowess, so he didn't dare to be careless. Otherwise, he would end up like the fierce martial artist. In the next second, yellow smoke appeared behind him. The smoke was filled with sand, and he had obtained the properties and characteristics of sand. He squatted down and pressed his palms on the ground. The wet soil under his palms instantly dried up and turned into cracks. Bang! 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 A series of explosions rang out, and the dry ground turned into a ferocious sandstorm. It directly appeared under Brother Dog's feet, and also surged into the air. Roar! Brother Dog's thick limbs leaped up and dodged the surging sandstorm like a crazy werewolf. 10 sharp claws extended from his forelimbs and landed on Captain Yamazaki, who was the weakest among them. The gray-robed subordinate, who was a peak level 9 Yuan Venerate, was no weaker than Brother Dog. The skinny martialist had a sore soul and was very difficult to deal with. Even if Brother Dog became a level 6 Beast Venerate, he would at most be able to maintain an undefeated status. The possibility of killing 3 people was not high. You actually dare to take the initiative to attack? I really admire your courage to court death. Double the gravity, 5 times the gravity, open! On the other hand, Xianyuan Chemical sneered when he saw Qin Hao rushing toward him. His body shook with light as he activated the power of his family bloodline. Just like Xianyuan Wuhuang in the Medicine Valley and Xianyuan Wuji in the Emperor Martial competition. At this moment, Xianyuan Chemical possessed the ability to release gravity and gain an advantage in the battle environment. The skinny man had once said that Qin Hao had killed a level 8 essence soul martialist. Xianyuan Chemical himself was also a level 8 Yuan Venerate. Of course, his gravity source soul was stronger than the tree soul in terms of attack method and power. He could also kill the youth in blue. Essence soul martialists had different attributes, so there would be a huge difference in strength. However, Xianyuan Chemical would not underestimate Qin Hao. The first rule of the family was, never underestimate your opponent. Similarly, never underestimate the ability of the Xianyuan family. Therefore, he immediately activated 5 times the gravity. As for Qin Hao, he could only use 5 times the gravity. To be honest, I don't resent you for killing my useless brother. He committed all kinds of evil, and did not make any progress. He was also doted on by my old father and obstructed me from taking the position of the family head. His death was not regrettable at all. Not only do I not resent you, but I should also thank you properly. As a reward, I will cut off your head and hang it on the tall city gate tower of proud Spring City. I will make sure that you will not be able to rest in peace after death. You will be exposed to the elements and turned into dried meat. Your death will be exchanged for my glory. This is the value of your life. As he spoke, Xianyuan Chemical's 5 times the gravity enveloped a 500-meter radius. Qin Hao was already trapped. Xianyuan Chemical stretched out his hand and grabbed Qin Hao's neck as if he could really break it. In response, Qin Hao released a glaring sword light. Furthermore, a scarlet light was also released from Qin Hao's body and enveloped a 500-meter radius, completely covering Xianyuan Chemical's gravitational field. After the gravitational field was covered by the light, it completely lost its suppressive effect on Qin Hao. Domain, Fleeting Sword. Qin Hao's great void sword qi flew out of his hand and pierced through Xianyuan Chemical's palm with a puff sound, leaving a bloody hole. Moreover, the sword also cut off a bunch of his elegant hair. How is this possible? Xianyuan Chemical tilted his head and the sword qi flew past his cheek, leaving a shocking bloodstain. He found that the gravitational field he released did not have any effect on Qin Hao. Nothing is impossible. The big river sword came from the sky. Qin Hao would never tell him that Xianyuan Wuhuang had risked his life to release 9 times the gravity and ended up dying in his own domain. The indestructible samsara art had completely restrained the Xianyuan family's source soul. Even if Xianyuan Wutian came in person, he could not solve the counter-effect of the divine level technique. At this moment, Qin Hao's great void sword flew out of his hand, rose into the sky, and fell straight down, stabbing into Xianyuan Chemical's head. Qin Hao punched him. 6 times the gravity, earth protection. Xianyuan Chemical was caught off guard and increased the gravitational field again. At the same time, his gravity source spirit drew in the power of the earth nearby, covering his body with a thick defensive shield. 6 times the gravity field, die. Qin Hao also increased the power of his domain, suppressing the gravitational field again. The speed of the sword falling from the sky did not slow down at all. Dazzling golden dragon scales appeared on his fist, and the dragon's soul was also activated. Oh no! Xianyuan Chemical was nervous, but there was no time to increase the gravitational field. He hurriedly dodged the sword, but it was a pity that he could not dodge Qin Hao's heavy punch. Pucci! The great void sword stabbed into the ground beside Xianyuan Chemical's left foot. Xianyuan Chemical's head shook violently, and he felt that his brain was about to spill out of his skull. His bulging eyes widened as his body flew out diagonally and rolled on the ground for 100 meters. It's over, Red Lotus exploding flame blade. Qin Hao elegantly picked up the Great Void Sword and activated the second soul power, Red Lotus Overlord Flame. Suddenly, a flame covered the Emerald Sword's shadow and the earth began to tremble. Chapter 1202. Brother Dog won't be able to hold on for long. I have to finish this battle as soon as possible. Boom. Infusing the Red Lotus Overlord fire, Qin Hao threw out a fire wave that was hundreds of meters long. It instantly descended on Xianyuan Chemical's head. Hundreds of meters of sword energy proved that the power of the exploding flame blade had reached its peak. Hundreds of meters of sword energy were much stronger. However, it was only one of Qin Hao's many martial arts techniques. The Jade Sky Slash was even stronger. The Jade Sky Slash consumed too much vitality. With the effect of the realm, the exploding flame blade was enough to split Xianyuan Chemical in half. This was called using the martial arts reasonably without excessive consumption. Qin Hao's analysis was correct. However, accidents often broke the result. As the fire wave descended, it indeed split the earth force protecting Xianyuan Chemical. However, a white light suddenly bloomed on Xianyuan Chemical's body. With a clang, the white light blocked the fatal attack and prevented his body from being split into two. That's the best defensive venerable artifact, the Silver Wind Leopard Armor. Qin Hao gritted his teeth. The Silver Wind Leopard Armor was comprehended by Xianyuan Chemical on the Divine Soldier platform. Li Wanji had commented that not only was it strong in defense, but it could also increase the speed of the Wind Leopard and make its owner lighter. It was lighter and more flexible. It was a rare treasure. Now, Qin Hao's sword had verified Li Wanji's comment. The Wind Leopard armor successfully blocked the bursting flame blade. Moreover, it was incomparably sturdy. Not even a mark was left on the armor. Xianyuan Chemical's speed increased, and he bounced on the spot nimbly. Although this sword attack didn't have any effect, it scared Xianyuan Chemical so much that his face turned pale. Damn it, no wonder you were so confident and arrogant. It turns out that you have the rare twin souls. I was too careless. Xianyuan Chemical's heart thumped wildly for a while. At this moment, he was suddenly enlightened. Now they understood why Qin Hao was able to climb to the fifth platform and even resist the pressure of the sixth step to successfully climb to the sixth platform. It was because he was a rare twin souls warrior on the continent. Even so, his cultivation was almost one whole heavenly cycle realm, which deeply shocked Xianyuan Chemical. You are so lucky. Qin Hao's face was cold. He loosened his right hand and the Great Void Sword returned to his space ring. The Silver Wind Leopard armor's defense was too strong. It could easily block a full-powered attack from a beginner-level origin sovereign. It was far beyond the sharpness of the Great Void Sword and couldn't be broken. If he wanted to shatter it, Qin Hao would have to raise his state to the level of the primitive emperor. And Qin Hao could do it. That was to activate 75% of the dragon's power. When he had been a level 8 Yuan monarch, he had been able to fight against Zhou Wudao and Shi Kuanglong, who were half-step Yuan sovereigns. Now that Qin Hao was a late-stage level 9 Yuan monarch, he had awakened his dragon form and activated 75% of his dragon power. His battle prowess would definitely reach the monarch realm. Therefore, the Great Void Sword was no longer needed. Xianyuan Chemical blushed when he heard Qin Hao say lucky to him. Previously, at the Coiling Dragon Spectacle, Ning Chaofan had used this method to humiliate Qin Hao. I didn't underestimate you at the beginning, but I have to admit that I still underestimated your ability. As a dual-soul martial artist, you can withstand the abnormal pressure of a level 6 Yuan monarch. I should have thought of this earlier. 6 times the gravity is ineffective against you. Don't worry, I won't make the same mistake twice. If 6 times the gravity isn't enough, try 7 times the gravity and make me lie down. Wearing the Silver Wind Leopard armor, Xianyuan Chemical's confidence was restored. He roared in a domineering tone and began to release 7 times the gravity. He thought that Qin Hao would be pressed to the ground under 7 times the gravity. He wouldn't be able to move and would be at his mercy. Suddenly, as a ray of light shrouded the area, the gravity area of 600 meters was expanded to 700 meters. Unfortunately, he didn't know that Qin Hao had used the power of his domain to offset his gravity source spirit. Therefore, Xianyuan Chemical made the same mistake again. The one who should lie down is you. Lie down for me. Qin Hao let out a thunderous roar. He wasn't affected by the 7 times gravity at all. Xianyuan Chemical's face was filled with horror. Xianyuan Chemical's panicked expression changed as a violent fist descended. Pung! With this punch, Qin Hao hammered Xianyuan Chemical's proud head into the mud and forced him to lie down on the ground. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out. Xianyuan Chemical pulled his head out of the mud and shook it vigorously. Kneeling on the ground, he raised his head and looked at Qin Hao in confusion. Why is it like this? 7 times the gravity still couldn't affect Qin Hao. Good question. Do you know Xianyuan Wuhuang and Xianyuan Wuji? Actually, I'm very curious. Compared to the two of them, where do you rank among the younger generation of the Xianyuan family? Qin Hao said in a low voice. Looking down, his eyes were as cold as an emperor's. Big brother Wuhuang and Xianyuan Wuji? Xianyuan Chemical's face changed with a schwa sound. The shadow of his childhood memory instantly hit his heart. It was a group training competition for the younger generation of the family, just like the hunt Qin Hao participated in Qiutian town. However, only the disciples of the Xianyuan family were allowed to participate in the hunt. The branch disciples with excellent results could enter the main branch. In that battle, Xianyuan Chemical's result was terrible. However, Xianyuan Wuhuang ranked 5th in the hunt. In fact, if it weren't for Xianyuan Wuhuang's care, Xianyuan Chemical wouldn't even be qualified. Unfortunately, Xianyuan Wuhuang made a big mistake and was deprived of the qualification to enter the main branch. He was sent to a remote place in Xiliang to carry out a secret mission. As for what the mission was, Xianyuan Chemical wasn't qualified to know. However, he was very clear about Xianyuan Wuhuang's terrifying aptitude. Except for the geniuses of the direct branch living in the imperial capital, Xianyuan Wuhuang was definitely the first among the branch disciples. If Xianyuan Wuhuang wasn't sent to Xiliang, but to the imperial capital, with the huge amount of resources provided by the main branch, he might have already reached the emperor stage and left Xianyuan Chemical behind. As for Xianyuan Wuji, he also knew that he was one of the top 3 disciples of the branch. His aptitude was also above Xianyuan Chemical's. He also knew that half a year ago, Xianyuan Wuji went to Beijing to participate in some bullshit emperor martial arts competition. Although Xianyuan Chemical looked down on the emperor martial arts competition in Beijing, he thought that Xianyuan Wuji should win the championship. It should be easy for him to win the championship. At that time, Xianyuan Wuji also thought so. Therefore, he didn't even bother to participate in the Coiling Dragon Wonder. If he stimulated his potential in the Coiling Dragon Wonder, his cultivation would be stronger. He might even be able to defeat Zhou Wudao and Qin Hao. However, recently, Xianyuan Chemical heard that Xianyuan Wuji failed and came back. One of his arms was chopped off. He drank all day long and was dispirited. He was no longer a high-spirited genius. Xianyuan Chemical was very surprised. He wondered who was so capable to defeat the genius of the Xianyuan clan. As for Qin Hao, it could be seen from the city where he lived. The division of the Xianyuan clan was strong and weak. Proud Spring City defended the border. They belonged to the cannon fodder series. Xianyuan Wuji's clansmen lived inland. Their status and cultivation were 1 level higher than that of Proud Spring City's branch. On the other hand, Xianyuan Wuhuang's branch lived in an area close to the imperial capital. It was equivalent to guarding the gate of the imperial capital. The result was obvious. Xianyuan Wuhuang's aptitude was the best, followed by Xianyuan Wuji, and Xianyuan Chemical was the worst. How do you know about Xianyuan Wuhuang? Do you know Brother Wuhuang? If you know him, I can consider forgiving you for killing my younger brother. I can even help you hide it from the Xianyuan clan. Xianyuan Chemical's face was covered in cold sweat. He didn't answer Qin Hao's question directly. Hee. Qin Hao sneered. Even though he didn't get an answer, he could see the result from Xianyuan Chemical's face. An Yuan king can produce 9 times the gravity. Trash like you can't compare with it. Xianyuan Wuhuang was indeed a very powerful guy. It's a pity that he died too early. It's a pity that he was my enemy. What? You killed Xianyuan Wuhuang. Not only Xianyuan Wuhuang, but Xianyuan Wuji's hand was chopped off by my wife. He was also defeated by me, Qin Hao said coldly. At this moment, the strength of the dragon had awakened. Dense dragon scales crawled all over his face. Although the one who defeated Xianyuan Wuji was Zhou Wudao was the one who defeated Xianyuan Wuji. However, Zhou Wudao was beaten away by Qin Hao like a rabbit. Therefore, Xianyuan Wuji was defeated by Qin Hao. He wasn't wrong. Crack! Xianyuan Chemical felt as if a thunderbolt had struck his brain. He screamed in fear. Chapter 1203. Xianyuan Wuji was stronger than him, but he had lost an arm. Xianyuan Wuhuang's aptitude was better than Xianyuan Wuji's, but he had been killed by Qin Hao personally. The shadow had turned into a nightmare that devoured one's soul and shattered Xianyuan Chemical's pride and dignity. At this moment, he had lost all his courage. Who are you? Why are you targeting the Xianyuan family? He stuttered as he sobbed. Xianyuan Wuhuang, Xianyuan Wuji, and Xianyuan Qingli had all been crippled or killed. Now it was his turn. Me! The corners of Qin Hao's mouth curled up as his body continued to expand in Xianyuan Chemical's eyes. His muscles bulged out of his white clothes, and his muscles and dragon scales flickered. His right hand turned into a ferocious dragon claw, and his black hair, which wasn't too long, fell to his waist. I have always been me, the one destined to topple the Xianyuan family and crush all of you to smithereens. Qin Hao raised his dragon claw and pressed it down on Xianyuan Chemical's head. In his palm was a destructive flame dragon revolving sky slash. On the other hand, while Qin Hao had gained an overwhelming advantage, Brother Dog had fallen into a losing position. He had wanted to kill Captain Yamazaki, who was the weakest, first, but he hadn't succeeded. As the gray-robed subordinate attacked, the monkey martialist harassed him with sand, and Yamazaki launched a sneak attack. Brother Dog's situation became more and more dangerous. Roar! His anger turned into flames that shrouded his body. He was forced to use his exceptional flame dog body in the face of the 3 attacks. Brother Dog activated his exceptional flame dog body and turned into a burning state. His entire body seemed to be made of magma as tongues of fire darted about. Although his flames weren't the real Red Lotus tyrannical flames, these mutated flames were still much stronger than ordinary exceptional flames. They weren't much worse than Duan Ziju's 7 ultimate sun flames. At most, they didn't have the strange transformations of the sun flames. Are these flames? Oh my God! Could it be that even a dog has soul power? The monkey martialist and Yamazaki looked at each other in shock. A martialist's precious origin soul had actually appeared in a dog's body. The gray-robed subordinate took 2 steps back, not daring to be as arrogant as before. The temperature of Brother Dog's flames gave him a strong sense of threat. Even if a Yuan venerate at the peak of the Zuniways, he would be severely injured. Roar! Activating the heavenly flame dog body, Brother Dog spat out a breath at Yamazaki. Sand wall. Seeing this, the monkey martial artist pressed his palms against the ground once more. With two buzzing sounds, a high wall of sand rose from the ground in front of them. It was 5 meters thick, and there were 2 of them. However, these 2 sand walls could not stop Brother Dog's breath at all. They were penetrated in an instant. Firstly, the monkey's cultivation level was lower than Brother Dog's. Secondly, the level of the heavenly flame was higher than sand. After the 2 veil walls were pierced through, they collapsed and turned into dust. What a ferocious dog fire! The gray-clothed subordinate exclaimed and attacked without hesitation. Otherwise, Yamazaki and the monkey warrior would be shot to death by Brother Dog. The gray-robed subordinate's palm flashed, and he took out a huge harpoon. He injected his essence into the harpoon and activated the inscription technique. Go! The gray-clothed subordinate held his fork and stabbed forward. Hulalala, a watery light flickered in midair. Within the watery light, a dense swarm of flying fish appeared. All of them were big, fat, and round. It was a large school. They were shaped like small sharks. They opened their mouths and revealed their shark teeth. They swallowed the flames along the way and absorbed them before crashing into Brother Dog's body. Clang! Clang! Brother Dog was knocked into a ball of sparks. It staggered and retreated. At this moment, the flames on its body had weakened significantly. Moreover, there were many places where its fur had been bitten off by the school of fish, leaving bloody holes the size of a fist. Brother Dog's blood also flowed all over his body. Ha ha ha! Wonderful! The monkey warrior exclaimed in admiration. The harpoon is so powerful! Captain Yamazaki was very envious as he looked at the steel spear in his hand. His steel spear and harpoon had been comprehended at the same time and were of the same quality. However, the inscription technique attached to the harpoon was more precious than his. Ha ha ha! Jump over the head of the sharks. Stupid dog, quickly kneel down and accept your death. You took the initiative to be cooked into a pot of dog meat and let us put in chili and spices. Die. The gray-clothed subordinate held his harpoon and jumped up high. At this moment, he was extremely brave. He injected even more essence into the harpoon, and the tip of the harpoon exploded with a terrifying light. Within the light, a huge shark that was 10 meters long appeared. Roar! Brother Dog realized the danger. The gray-clothed subordinate's cultivation was not weaker than his, and the inscription technique on the harpoon had a double effect. It could shoot out both the fish and the watery light. The impact of the fish and the watery light would overlap, which was extremely disadvantageous for Brother Dog. Buzz! As the threat approached, Brother Dog's body suddenly expanded and turned into a 20-meter-long dog. He stood on his hind legs and his body stood upright. He raised his neck and took a deep breath. As the air entered his stomach became bigger and bigger. This would be his most powerful breath, and it might also be his last attack. Danger! Qin Hao's palm was about to press on Xianyuan Chemical's face when he suddenly realized that Brother Dog was forced into a desperate situation. He could not help but slow down his falling speed and shouted, "Dharma idol!" Whoosh! A white shadow separated from his body and turned into a ray of light, flying into Brother Dog's battle in the distance. Although he was not sure whether Dharma idol could catch up with him or not, and whether it would be like the previous 2 times where it just flew out and its time was up, Qin Hao could only choose to believe in it, just like he believed in himself. What is that? Doppelganger technique? Ha ha ha! You idiot! Don't you know that doppelganger technique will divide your power? You are so stupid for a stupid dog that deserves to die. Thank God for giving me the chance to counterattack. I never thought that I, Xianyuan Chemical, would have my own halo one day. Go to hell. Xianyuan Chemical took advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to fiercely attack Qin Hao's chest with both fists. Qin Hao's qi and blood were surging, and he spat out blood. However, Qin Hao's dragon claw also pressed down fiercely. With a heavy smack, it covered the top of Xianyuan Chemical's head, and the skull under his palm immediately shattered. Xianyuan Chemical let out a shrill cry like a ghost. Blood gushed out of his head, and his body was like a pile of mud, paralyzed and falling to the ground at any time. The moment he was hit, his desire to win forced out the potential in his body, and he ran out crazily. Wearing the silver-winged leopard armor, he was very fast. Just you wait, I will come again. You will not have a good ending for killing the younger generation of the Xianyuan family. Just you wait. Blood gushed out of his cracked head like a fountain, which was very spectacular. However, Xianyuan Chemical would not stop running. Unfortunately, you won't have that chance. 8 times the field. Explode. Qin Hao's dragon claw grabbed at Xianyuan Chemical's escaping body. Bang. The spectacular head that was gushing blood like a fountain was completely shattered, but Xianyuan Chemical's headless body disappeared without a trace in an instant. Indeed, he would not stop running even if he died. 23. Education 123 Literature Network. Chapter 1204. Puff. Spitting out another mouthful of blood, Qin Hao knelt on one knee and supported himself with his palms on the ground. His dragonized state was slowly dispelled. Fortunately, the dragon scales had offset the power of Xianyuan Chemical's fist. His abdomen had only been injured by the Yuan Qi, but the injury was limited. As the tranquil water circulated through his meridians, the injury was almost healed. Essence Soul Realm warriors are indeed much stronger than ordinary warriors. Looking in the direction where Xianyuan Chemical had escaped, Qin Hao withdrew his gaze. Escape? It was impossible to escape. His head had been smashed, and the red lotus fire qi had poured into his internal organs from the wound. Xianyuan Chemical's divine soul had been annihilated the moment his head exploded. That headless body was a dead body. Later, he would find him and take off his top-grade winged leopard armor. At this time, Qin Hao looked at Brother Dog's battle group. Looking at the rampaging and brave Fa Xiang, he smiled with satisfaction. Fa Xiang didn't let him down. He had arrived in time. In the distance, the gray-clothed subordinate was about to launch the 10-meter-long shark with his harpoon. With a flash of white lightning, a bloody 3-pointed spearhead appeared in front of the gray-clothed subordinate's chest. He had been killed by Fa Xiang with one shot. How could this be? The gray-clothed subordinate felt as if his body had been torn apart. His Yuan Qi suddenly scattered, and the 10-meter-long shark disappeared. Before dying, he turned his head with difficulty and saw a face as cold as Qin Hao's, with 2 strands of white hair floating in front of his forehead. The gray-clothed subordinate's eyes were full of doubts. Wasn't Qin Hao fighting with the eldest young master? Why did he sneak attack him? And where was the eldest young master? Plop! The gray-clothed subordinate fell to the ground and died. Before dying, he knew that the eldest young master had shamelessly run away. Oh my God, it's this damn thing again. When the skinny warrior saw Fa Xiang, it was as if he had seen a ghost. He was so scared that he drilled into the soil and ran away. He didn't even have the courage to struggle and resist, leaving Yamazaki in a daze. A doppelganger? The skinny warrior didn't know what Fa Xiang was, but it was definitely not a doppelganger, because the strength of its aura was exactly the same as Qin Hao's. Last time, he had almost died under Fa Xiang's sword. With a shadow in his heart, it would be strange if he didn't run. Unfortunately, you won't be so lucky this time. Activate your 8-fold domain. Fa Xiang roared and stabbed his spear into the ground. A powerful crimson light quickly spread out from the spear, instantly catching up to the thin martial artist and trapping his earth escape technique. The thin martial artist felt as if he had bumped into a wall. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break through the soil. He was extremely anxious underground. Fa Xiang also walked over with a smile on his face. He inserted his big hand into the soil and grabbed the thin martial artist's neck, lifting him up. "Hero, please listen to me." Seeing this, Captain Yamazaki immediately knelt down. Before he could finish his words, he was burned to ashes by Brother Dog's most powerful breath. Then, the 20-meter giant dog's body shrunk back to its original form. Brother Dog walked to Fa Xiang's side tiredly. Its gloomy eyes stared at the struggling skinny warrior as it considered how to eat him. It wondered if it should add some chili and MSG. "Impressive." Qin Hao walked over from afar and gave Fa Xiang a thumbs up. "The first time you used Uncle's Dragon Shadow Spear, you killed a level 9 Yuan Venerate. That was a good start. However, I am very puzzled. Why did you last so long this time and still not disappear?" "That's because, bang." Fa Xiang collapsed and turned into a tiny dragon spirit. It let out a sound of humiliation and reluctantly burrowed into Qin Hao's body. Sigh. Qin Hao shook his head and sighed. He really couldn't be cool for more than 3 seconds. However, at this moment, Qin Hao's movements were extremely fast. He took over Fa Xiang's job and grabbed the thin martial artist's neck. "Hero, please listen to me. I was forced." The thin martial artist was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. His mind was racing as he tried to think of a way to fabricate a lie. Qin Hao couldn't be bothered with him. He exerted force with his palm and prepared to choke this person to death. Hero, please wait. When I was looking for Xianyuan chemical, I passed by an evil place and saw a cute little girl with 2 ponytails. She emitted a rainbow-colored radiance when she fought. However, she has been targeted by Ning Chaofan and the situation is not optimistic. The thin martial artist felt that death was approaching and tried his best to pry off Qin Hao's fingers as he spoke. Previously, he had seen K.Er and Qin Hao together at the Coiling Dragon Wonder. They should be a team. However, he wasn't sure if K.Er was important to Qin Hao or if they had formed a temporary team. At present, he could only try his best. As long as there was a chance of survival, the thin martial artist wasn't willing to let it go. "K.Er?" Qin Hao was startled and quickly released his grip. He looked down at the monkey martial artist at his feet and said, "Where is she? If you dare lie to me." "I wouldn't dare. Everything I say is true. I swear to God." The thin martial artist cried. He instinctively wanted to turn into sand and escape. However, he found that the surrounding area was enveloped by a powerful force. His primordial spirit was suppressed by this strange force and could not be used. At this moment, the thin martial artist was truly in despair. "Tell me where that evil place is and I will let you live," Qin Hao said. "All right, I will draw the terrain for you. I hope you will fulfill your promise." Seeing Qin Hao's anxious expression, the thin martial artist knew that he had made the right bet. The cute little girl with 2 ponytails was someone that the white-haired man cared about. Following that, the thin martial artist drew the terrain in detail according to his memory. Qin Hao scanned it seriously and remembered the last place K.Er had been seen. "Hero, to thank you for not killing me, I will give you a magical weapon." The thin martial artist took out a compass and respectfully handed it to Qin Hao to increase his chances of survival. "What is this?" Qin Hao took the compass and looked down. Although he could not understand it, he knew that it was a small toy made by a refiner. "It is called the Yuan Qi Detection Compass. Hero, you might have felt it. The pressure in this space is very strong and there is a seal in the sky that prevents flight. A martial artist's mental strength cannot detect the aura of others. Only when both parties are close to each other can they sense each other. The Yuan Qi Detection Compass is different. It can accurately locate other martial artists. As long as you pour your yuan qi into it, it will show you the location of nearby martial artists and the distance between you and them. It is convenient for you to avoid other strong martial artists. The thin martial artist explained in detail as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. Qin Hao was attracted by the magical compass. This proved that the more valuable the thin martial artist was, the higher the chance of survival. With the yuan qi detection compass in your hand, you will be able to find the cute little girl in that evil place. Ha ha! Isn't it magical? Is it fun? It is very valuable. It was made by Master Gu of the Star Refining Tower in the Upper Lin City. I bought it at the auction and spent 2 million Xian crystals. Now I am giving it to you for free. A treasure and a hero are a perfect match. If there is nothing else, I will leave now. The thin martial artist said confidently and left with his head held high. He provided such important information and gave Qin Hao such a precious celestial device. Although the detection compass was worth less than 20,000 Xian crystals, it was actually very useful. After all, in the outside world, martial artists could clearly sense each other's yuan qi and lock onto each other with their mind. Therefore, the detection compass was despised by the martial artists of the southern region. They said that it was the most useless thing made by King Gu. However, this hidden dragon secret realm was very special. Even the thin martial artist did not expect that the detection compass would be so useful and help him avoid many dangers. Now, he gave it to Qin Hao, but he still felt sorry for it. Well, it is indeed magical and fun. Brother Dog, help him reach paradise early. Qin Hao waved his hand at Dog Spirit. 23. Education 123 Literature Network. Chapter 1205. Translator. Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio. The king of evil, you untrustworthy bastard. The skinny man turned around and roared. Vital energy surged out of him as he prepared to fight to the death with Qin Hao. Boom! His roar disappeared in the flames as a powerful breath blasted toward him. His body, soul, and divine soul were all destroyed. Trustworthy? People like you don't deserve to talk about trustworthiness, Qin Hao said coldly as he stared at the black residue on the ground. He turned around and followed the direction where Xianyuan Chemical had run to find his headless body. Xianyuan Chemical's headless body ran very fast. In just a few seconds it had run more than 10 miles. If it hadn't slipped on a pile of demonic beast feces, it might have run even further. Next, Qin Hao took off the top-grade wind leopard armor and threw it into the space ring. He then brought Brother Dog to the evil place that the skinny man had mentioned. The journey wasn't too far. With the route map provided by the skinny man, Qin Hao and the rest arrived at their destination in 1 day and 1 night. They didn't rest on the way. Looking around, they were surrounded by low mountains. The environment was rather dangerous. Among them, there was a mountain with a very strange shape. Although it wasn't very tall, only about 500 to 600 meters in length, it was like a round pillar. The top of it was shaped like a mushroom. It looked like something that had hardened. What an evil place. It's not suitable for children. Why don't we destroy it? Qin Hao also pitied Kei. He wondered how the pure Kei felt when she saw this thing. Would it leave a scar? Then, as Brother Dog was drooling, Qin Hao swept a wave of vital energy at the pillar and shattered it. Roar! Roar! Brother Dog let out a dissatisfied roar as it frantically threw dirt at the ground with its paws. Qin Hao couldn't be bothered with it. He took out the large disc and prepared to search for Kei's aura nearby. The skinny man explained the basic operation of the large disc. Qin Hao was a craftsman himself, so it wasn't difficult for him to use it. He gathered vital energy in his palms and injected it into the disc. The disc reacted. The surface of the disc suddenly turned pitch black, just like the middle of the night. The needle spun crazily in the pitch-black darkness. Wherever it passed, spots of light gradually appeared. The light of the spots of light varied in intensity and color. Qin Hao nodded. Presumably, the light spots on the surface represent the nearby warriors or the demonic beasts inside the secret realm. The orange light signified that a warrior's cultivation had reached the saint level. Red, king rank. Purple, venerable rank. The golden light spot was at the emperor stage. Furthermore, the more intense the flickering of the light spot was, the stronger the martial artist was. What was even more amazing was that, after the needle swept past, the disk was no longer pitch-black. Forests, rivers, mountains, and so on appeared on top of the disk. Once Qin Hao's finger landed on a certain terrain, the environment of that area would be magnified, allowing Qin Hao to see it more clearly. Thus, it was convenient for him to use the terrain to avoid being hunted down by experts. I didn't expect Master Gu to have created such an ingenious auxiliary device. What a genius! Qin Hao praised wholeheartedly. He looked at the center of the disk, where there was an unusually dazzling red spot of light. It represented Qin Hao himself. The red spot of light that belonged to Qin Hao was exceptionally terrifying. It outshone many of the nearby purple spots of light. Qin Hao, who was at the king rank, actually had a more terrifying vitality than many venerable rank. The big disk seemed to be extremely accurate. It accompanied Qin Hao to weaken or strengthen his own aura. The spots of light that belonged to him would correspondingly dim or suddenly strengthen. Holding Master Gu's big disk in his hand, it was more delicate and accurate than when a warrior released his own consciousness to sense the other party. What a pity! Qin Hao shook his head. Such an ingenious tool was spurned by the southern region warriors. It was a waste of King Gu's efforts and talent. But thinking about it carefully, it also had a certain flaw. Usually, powerful warriors who had practiced qi concealment techniques could change their powerful aura at any time. If they relied too much on the big disk, it would be easy to be misled by it. Thus, misjudging the enemy's cultivation level could be fatal. A tool is just a tool. It can only be used as a reference. The sharpness of the warrior's own body is the right way. Qin Hao nodded. Although the big disk had flaws, he couldn't help but admire King Gu's ability. Even in Qin Hao's previous life, he definitely couldn't create such an ingenious tool. If it was used on the battlefield, it would be the most outstanding scout. There was no need to send people to take risks to scout. As long as the generals sat in the tent and each of them held a big disk, they would be able to understand the enemy's movements and deployment of troops. After all, at the moment of entering the battlefield, no one would be stupid enough to hide their cultivation level. I'll go back and have a chat with old Gu. I'll ask him to create more big disk for me. Also, I'll see if I can fill in its flaws and make it more accurate. Qin Hao made up his mind. Then, his fingers slid over the light spots one by one, magnifying them one by one. According to the attributes displayed on the disk, he analyzed which one was K-Er. K-Er's potential had been stimulated by the coiling dragon peak. Its cultivation level had reached the beginner stage of the 9th level venerable beast. The color it emitted was purple, and the intensity of the light should not be too intense. Orange, red, and occasionally one or two golden light spots were all eliminated by Qin Hao. He only looked at the purple light spots. On the big disk, there were more than 10 purple light spots. As Qin Hao moved, the number of light spots increased and decreased. It was actually very difficult to find the real K-Er. Qin Hao brought Brother Dog with him, and ran to several places in a row to investigate secretly. However, they did not find K. Moreover, the deeper they went into the evil zone, the more mushroom-shaped pillars there were. The color of the pillars also became darker. Qin Hao broke them one by one, almost angering Brother Dog. Qin Hao was really curious why Brother Dog was so obsessed with that kind of thing. K. Little girl, where are you? Stop hiding! After spending an entire day, Qin Hao had almost searched all the purple light spots, but they were all not Ke. He was getting more and more anxious. Could it be that Ke was killed by Ning Chaofan? Damn it, Han and the old demon are nowhere to be found. It wasn't easy to find some news about Ke. If anything happens to her, how am I going to explain it to Han? Qin Hao squatted down and held his head with both hands. Roar, roar. Brother Dog's nose twitched. Suddenly, its body slanted and ran toward the forest not far away. It didn't even say anything and left Qin Hao where he was. Brother Dog, wait for me. Qin Hao used the water wind steps to chase after it. It was as if he had seen the light of dawn. Brother Dog was very excited. It must have found something. It could be a special treasure of a demonic beast like the spiritual beast fruit, or it could be Ke herself. After all, demonic beasts had a very sensitive sense of smell. Ke was the rainbow skylark, Xiao Han's mount. Since Brother Dog's nose was so sharp, Qin Hao felt that the chances of finding Ke were very high. Following that, Qin Hao was disappointed. This was because in the forest, there was an even more magnificent, thicker, longer, and incomparably black mushroom-shaped pillar. It could be called the Evil King. After seeing this black pillar, Brother Dog's eyes widened. Its saliva flowed all over the ground. It couldn't wait to pounce on it and bite it off. You're still in such a mood at a time like this. Qin Hao angrily slammed his palm down. Vital energy surged under his palm, and the sound of a dragon's roar could be heard. It viciously shattered the incomparably black Evil King. Aya, which blind bastard dares to disturb me again? Do you want to die? Ke's angry voice could be heard as the sky was filled with debris. She nimbly emerged from behind the broken Evil King and slammed her palm toward Qin Hao's face. Please remember the domain name of this book. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version website. Chapter 1206. Qian Qian. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Super Big Baby Qin Hao didn't even have the time to be happy before he was forced to defend himself. Bang! Their palms collided, and a violent gust of wind spread out from their palms. It swept through the trees within 100 meters, causing them to explode one by one. Good palm technique, Qin Hao praised. A powerful force came from his hand, and his body slid back more than 10 meters from Ke's attack. He had to use his dragon power to block the attack. This attack was as heavy as 10,000 pounds, and it was as powerful as thunder. The palm technique was huge, and it was obvious that it was taught by Uncle Xiao. With the power of this palm, Ning Chaofan and his subordinates in black would not be able to gain any advantage even if they attacked together. Qin Hao completely let go of his worries. Zing, zing, zing. Even though Qin Hao was pushed back more than 10 meters and forced to use his dragon power, Ke was not feeling well either. However, Ke was not in a good state either. She was shaken and was forced to take a few steps back. Why are you here? When she saw that it was Qin Hao, Ke was slightly shocked. Her little mouth then curled up as tears streamed down her cheeks. She opened her arms wide and threw herself into Qin Hao's embrace. Her hands wrapped tightly around Qin Hao's back as she burst into tears. Boo-hoo! Qin Hao, you're such a bad guy. It's all your fault for collapsing Mount Pan Long and sucking us all here. Boo-hoo, I want big sister, I want big sister. Gulp! Looking at the little girl who threw herself into his arms, Brother Dog looked at her enviously and swallowed his saliva. However, when he looked at his own fur, his face was filled with pain. When would he be able to transform into a human? Don't cry, don't cry. Qin Hao patted Ke's head. At this moment it was as if he had found his family, and his heart was filled with warmth. There are bad guys everywhere and everyone wants to catch me. I'm bullied every day, but you and sister don't come looking for me. Woo woo, Kaer misses sister so much. Kaer did not let go and hugged Qin Hao even tighter. She was afraid that this was a dream and that Qin Hao would fly away. She had transformed for 3 years. In human terms, she was only 7 or 8 years old. Even though she had matured early with Xiaohan, she was still a little girl. She had been living in the secret realm for a while. She had seen all kinds of translation and translation and translation and translation and translation those people. Translation and translation translation and translation and translation and translation. Translation Kaer did translation and translation without thinking. In the end, translation and translation and those people. She followed Qin Hao's gaze and saw the shattered mushroom-shaped rock on the ground. She stomped her foot angrily. How is it evil? Why did you shatter it? There's moss here that I like to eat. There's a lot of it growing on the evil king. Do you know that I'm very hungry? I've been hungry for so many days, boo-hoo. Kaer felt very wronged. When Xiaohan was around, whatever she wanted to eat, her sister had it in her space ring. Every time they went shopping, Xiaohan would buy Kaer some good snacks. In the end, when they reached this mystic realm, the two of them were separated. Kaer had not eaten anything that she liked for a long time. Today, they finally found one of Kaer's favorite foods, the green moss, but Qin Hao had shattered the rock. Kaer's delicious food was ruined. Oh, I'm sorry. Qin Hao's face turned red, and he hurriedly apologized. It seemed that he had misunderstood and thought that something had happened between Kaer and the evil king. I don't care. You have to compensate me. Kaer stretched out her hand toward Qin Hao. She remembered very clearly that Qin Hao had also stored a lot of delicious food for the wretched big yellow dog. Although most of it was meat, she could not care less. Kaer was really hungry. Here, a super invincible sausage. Qin Hao took out a sausage that he had bought on a boat and handed it to Kaer with a smile. He did not wait for Brother Dog to howl like a madman. He took out another sausage and tossed it to Brother Dog. So it's this good. Kaer caught it and took a big bite. Qin Hao suddenly shivered. He felt a chill run down his spine. He continued to ask, Where's Ning Xiaofan? Tell me, did he bully you? I'll go beat him up. You mean that guy with the scissors? I scared him away. Kaer took another bite of the sausage in her hand as she spoke proudly. Her little face was raised high. The skinny man had said that Ning Xiaofan had chased after Kaer, and he was not wrong. However, at that time, he had been in a hurry to find Xianyuan chemical and had not seen what had happened afterward. Kaer was a bird and could fly in the mystic realm. Ning Xiaofan and his black-robed subordinate had chased after her for a long time, wanting to get Kaer's peacock plume. In the end, they were so tired that they were gasping for breath. The two of them had almost died from exhaustion, but they could not even touch it. They could only watch with tears in their eyes as Kaer flew away. At that time, I saw many martial artists blocking Ning Xiaofan's path. They were very respectful and invited him to the eastern part of the forest. Furthermore, over the past few days, there have been frequent thunder and lightning in the east. There's an 80% chance that there's some kind of treasure. Kaer took the last bite of the sausage and extended her little hand toward Qin Hao. She had not eaten her fill yet. Ning Xiaofan had been unexpectedly blocked by others. This was also an important reason why he had given up on chasing after Kaer. No matter how difficult it was, he would not give up on the peacock plumes so easily. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.